Chapter 796. Poplar Fruit didn't immediately agree, as he didn't want to be in the limelight. Of course, he didn't directly refuse, only saying that he would consider it. However, after Poplar Fruit told Fong Beibei about this matter over the phone, Fong Beibei excitedly urged Poplar Fruit to go. Go! Help me get teacher He's and Fatty Haitao's autographs. Fong Beibei was a typical variety show fan, and would often drag Poplar Fruit to watch variety shows together at night. In the end, Poplar Fruit was still convinced by Fong Beibei. After putting down his phone, he bitterly smiled and picked it up again, calling Professor Luo Lin. Just like that, the itinerary was set. However, the recording of the show would definitely take some time, as Mango TV still needed to prepare some information for him. In the afternoon when they were free, Poplar Fruit brought Kiki and Jinzi out for a stroll. After a stroll, they arrived at the school's student activity center. After a month of development, the multidimensional teaching club had already grown to a considerable scale. With the efforts of Poplar Fruit and Wang Yuba, they had even applied for a house in the activity center. The house was their base. Of course, the main contributor was still Wang Yuba, while Poplar Fruit had only remotely asked the stubborn old man Chen Zongdai for help. Wang Yuba was truly a talented manager. During the time that Poplar Fruit wasn't around, he had managed the club very well. According to him, the club already had over 30 like-minded students, and on average, everyone would come over to teach the children every 2 to 3 days. Of course, Hu Junjie's girlfriend, Song Qing, was also very helpful. She had only been in the Chinese department for a little over a month, but she had already roped in 3 new recruits. It was said that they were all graduate students with good attainments in ancient poetry. When Poplar Fruit arrived, he happened to see Wang Yuba standing at the door of the classroom, watching. Lin Xingshan was teaching inside, and in a place where the camera couldn't capture, there was a girl listening to the lecture attentively, even meticulously taking notes. Don't you have classes today? Poplar Fruit patted Wang Yuba's shoulder and asked with a smile. Then why are you here? Wang Yuba was shocked by Poplar Fruit. When he turned around and saw that it was Poplar Fruit, he almost screamed. Luckily, he remembered that this was a classroom. Wang Yuba's and quickly pulled Poplar Fruit to the side. My dear brother, you scared me. There's no class this afternoon. Wang Yuba said with a smile. Senior brother, when did you come back? You didn't even call me. Papa, Kiki wants to go down and play. Kiki shouted. She and Jinzi felt that this cement wall was far less comfortable than the grass downstairs. Moreover, not far away, there were many people walking dogs. Standing here, they could hear the dogs' cheers. Wait a minute. When Sister Lin Xingshan comes out, let her take you to play. Poplar Fruit held Kiki's small arm and said with a smile. Kiki's playing abroad has become wild. Poplar Fruit smiled at Wang Yuba and explained. Yesterday, she came back at this time. She was tired from the journey and came back to rest, so she didn't have time to tell you. No, later you have to give me a few autographs. Wang Yuba said with a smile. Now you're a big celebrity. The news and newspapers are all about your deeds. When he talked about this matter, he didn't look serious at all. If Poplar Fruit didn't know that he wasn't so lively when he was working, he really wouldn't be at ease letting him manage the multidimensional volunteer teaching society. When Yijing and the others came back, they were always showing off their bags. We were all so envious. Wang Yuba said with a sigh and shook his head. He regretted that he didn't study hard in the past. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't believe him. He laughed and scolded. What are you envious of? If you are willing to study hard and get first place in class, I'll take you abroad to play next year. This wasn't a promise made by Poplar Fruit. In fact, Poplar Fruit was also thinking in his heart. If this group of classmates were really serious and sincere in helping those children with him, Poplar Fruit would definitely take them out to play next year. Of course, they wouldn't go abroad, but they would pick up the children of Xiong village and go to some historical places in the country that were worth learning about. Of course, Poplar Fruit wouldn't say this out loud. It would be better to send it out as a surprise in the future. After hearing Poplar Fruit's words, Wang Yuba immediately changed the topic and became serious. Hey senior, let me tell you. You were gone for a month. Although you recorded a few videos for the children, They missed you so much. Wang Yuba said with a smile. Every day, they would chase our teacher and ask if you were back. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. It's okay. Let me meet the children later. I also want to talk to them for a while. Is there any problem with the arrangement? I saw a girl in the room waiting to teach the children. It's okay. Wang Yuba said with certainty. You mean Wang Weiwei? She just joined this month, and she's still a freshman this year. Now, she's still learning from Shanshan and the others. Originally, she was scheduled to give a trial lesson this afternoon, but it's okay. She'll be willing to wait for 2 more days. I think this child is quite serious. Poplar Fruit said with emotion. She's still taking notes. Wang Yuba nodded and said, she's very good. She's always very active. Usually after class she would come to help. She's also very patient when communicating with the children. She's a good teacher. And Shanshan. When Wang Yuba talked about Lin Xingshan, his face was full of smiles. He said, let me show you something. Wang Yuba took out 2 pieces of folded A4 paper from the sling bag in his hand and handed it to Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit opened it. It was a very detailed guide to the use of remote education equipment. It was written very carefully and carefully. Poplar Fruit could even see the combination of the camera equipment and the projector, and how the teacher should stand so that the students could see the teacher and the small blackboard behind them. The angle of the teacher's eyes should be when looking at the camera, so that the students wouldn't think that the teacher was looking at them with his chin. Shanshan summarized it herself. Wang Yuba said with a smile. She's so awesome. She spent at least 3 days a week with us and sorted out a lot of information. Like this, many teachers said it was very useful. Poplar Fruit was a little touched. He reached out his hand and patted Wang Yuba's shoulder. He said, I think I'm very lucky to have met such awesome people. I thought that with Wang Yuba, I would be very relieved. I didn't expect that there would be Shanshan, Wang Weiwei, and many other kind people. Brother, you're making me blush, Wang Yuba said with a smile. No, really, I thank you on behalf of these children. Poplar Fruit said seriously. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 797. By the way, how's our progress going now? I see 1 classroom. Is it enough for so many children to attend? Previously, when we were abroad, it was still somewhat inconvenient to communicate, Poplar Fruit asked. He finally let go of the noisy Kiki's hand and let her play with Goldie in the corridor. He was just paying attention to her movements. Although the guardrail was much higher than Kiki's, Poplar Fruit was still very worried. Previously, Poplar Fruit had asked Wang Yuba if he needed funds to buy more equipment, because there were children in 6 grades. From an educational point of view, this is not enough. Wang Yuba said, but from a practical point of view, after testing and understanding these Miao children, we found that, in fact, regardless of whether the children are in the upper grade or the lower grade, their foundation is not too different. Poplar Fruit agreed. After all, after Professor Meng retired, no one taught for 2 years. Later, when Professor Meng came back, he only taught for more than half a year. After 3 years of neglect, except for Xiong Xiaolin, the other children's studies were really a mess. And now we have a limited space. It's not easy to divide them into different grades. Wang Yuba said frankly, 1 classroom is only enough for 1 teacher, so for the time being, we'll let them attend classes together. Brother Long helped us to gather the cameras of the 6 classrooms onto 1 screen. Wang Yuba said, this way, we can let the teacher observe the children's learning state. This won't work. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, there are too many people. 1 teacher can't take care of so many children. He clearly understood this point. With more than 300 children gathered on 1 screen, even Poplar Fruit could not grasp the situation of all of them at a glance. I know you want to save some money for me. Poplar Fruit smiled and patted Wang Yuba's shoulder. He smiled and said, but the children's studies are more important. You don't have to worry about spending money. I plan to set up a charity fund after returning from abroad, Poplar Fruit said confidently. A friend of mine told me that charity can't be done by 1 person alone. If we want distance education to benefit more children in poor areas, we have to call more people to join us. Fund? Wang Yuba's jaw dropped as he looked at Poplar Fruit. How much are we investing? You want to set up a fund? Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "See, you've underestimated your senior brother, haven't you? Let me tell you, we invested more than 30 million yuan in the beginning. I picked the majority of the money, and when I was overseas, I collected some from my friends. With so much money, it's better to set up a charity fund for professional, transparent, and formal management. Only then can we make the most of it." 30 million yuan, according to the current average investment in the children in Xiong village, would benefit more than 5,000 children. Wang Yuba was really speechless this time. He knew that Poplar Fruit wanted to promote distance education, but he didn't expect Poplar Fruit to invest so much money in it. The money collected wouldn't be too much. Most of it must have been paid by Poplar Fruit himself. Wang Yuba guessed correctly. In addition to the 18 million yuan that Fang Beibei gave him, Poplar Fruit also invested more than 1 million euros, 8 million yuan, from his trip to Bali. Of course, there were also Ardell, Beckham, and Allen from the United States who had promised to donate. There were all kinds of things, but it was definitely more than 30 million. Then do we still need to continue recruiting? Wang Yuba asked doubtfully. To be honest, there are more than 30 people now. Isn't it more than enough to teach 300 students? If we look at it from the perspective of the number of people, that's right, it was indeed so. On average, one teacher was responsible for 10 students. It seemed that even the children in the city didn't necessarily have such good treatment. However, it was from the perspective of the number of people. After Wang Yuba finished speaking, he immediately realized that his logic was wrong. "Ha, senior, I was wrong. I forgot to take everyone's time into consideration. After all, the people in the club were all university students. Basically, they were at the age where they needed their own time and space the most. Not to mention them, even Poplar Fruit couldn't follow this group of children for more than 8 hours a day like a regular teacher. Apart from their own schoolwork, they could only use 1 or 2 hours to teach the children at most. Who knew how many times they could come in a week?" Poplar Fruit nodded and said, "Recruiting, we need to continue recruiting. We still need a lot of people." Poplar Fruit laughed. "Yuba, did you forget? When I first introduced you, I said that our distance education was not only for teaching children, but also to provide more opportunities for the children to fully develop their own interests and hobbies. So we still need to go one step further and recruit new members." Poplar Fruit explained, "Students from the sports department can also consider joining. You know, we still lack a sports teacher. There's also music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and so on." Wang Yuba quickly took out a small notebook and wrote it down. Poplar Fruit wasn't just talking on paper. He had communicated with Fat Dragon. This guy was asked by Poplar Fruit to be stationed in the mountains. It was estimated that he wouldn't be able to come back until next month's winter. Currently, Xiong village relied on the funds left behind by Poplar Fruit and the support of the county's chief, Meng Ping, to build a sports stadium. Not only did it have a basketball court, but it also had a small soccer field. Similar long-distance equipment was being installed one after another. In the near future, the children would definitely be able to receive physical education under the guidance of distant sports teachers. Everything in the Xiong clan was on the right path. Poplar Fruit couldn't slack off in Yangcheng. Since he was back, he would work hard to obtain more resources and support for the multidimensional teaching, so that the teachers could keep up with the development of the school. But Yuba, you have to distinguish which students are doing this for the sake of charity hours, and which students are like Shanshan, sincerely wanting to do this well. Poplar Fruit laughed. Of course, no matter which student wants to join the team to help the children in the mountains, we welcome them. Wang Yuba looked at Poplar Fruit thoughtfully and nodded. Even if other teams are willing to help, we also welcome them. Poplar Fruit said, "What I mean is that we should include members like Shanshan as our main team. For students who are willing to contribute, not only do we have to support them to improve their teaching standards, but we also have to give them more resources. You don't have to tell them this directly, but in the future, I'll work hard to obtain more opportunities for them to get more points from the school." Poplar Fruit said seriously. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations, greater than over equal to. Chapter 798. Wang Di's Weibo had gained more than 10,000 fans in a month due to the 2 times he had attracted the attention of the internet. Although he could not compare to Poplar Fruit, previously, Poplar Fruit had gathered millions of fans because he posted many photos of Kiki. He was still considered a popular person on campus. However, it was precisely because Wang Di's Weibo had not been updated for a long time that it had lost a lot of popularity. As a result, Wang Di held it in for an entire day and pondered for a long time before he finally posted a clarification Weibo that would not be easily misunderstood and criticized by others. In the end, only 1,000 people reposted it after a night had passed. Of course, according to the logic of the internet, the 1,000 people tonight would have more than 5,000 reposts tomorrow, and 20 to 30,000 the day after tomorrow. Then the index would rise and finally cause a stir on the internet. One must know that Wang Di's Weibo had dragged Poplar Fruit out and told everyone that Poplar Fruit was Fang Beibei's boyfriend. He told everyone not to believe the rumors on the internet. He also listed some of Poplar Fruit's great achievements and wanted everyone to understand how amazing Fang Beibei's boyfriend was. Many people had already linked Poplar Fruit with China's #1 male model, who shone in Bali Fashion Week. However, because Wang Di did not post the photos, everyone was still vague and uncertain. If things really developed according to the original trajectory, then the internet's popularity of the genius couple that had just subsided would probably start to boil again. However, the world was full of all kinds of coincidences and changes. Even Wang Gugu, who was fighting for the headlines in the future, was not defeated time and time again. In the end, the netizens could not stand it anymore and teased him to make the headlines. Wang Di's Weibo encountered the same situation. It only became popular overnight, but the next day, it was squeezed into a corner by the overwhelming news on the internet and the media. Everything started with a phone call in the middle of the night in Gaumi County. It was a call from Sweden. At night, a small bungalow in Gaumi County was brightly lit. Then, Beijing also received the notice. That night, many people could no longer fall asleep. When it was close to dawn, almost all the major news media in the country were alarmed. The editor-in-chief personally wrote the article, and the typesetting that had already been sent to the printing plant was removed and replaced with new headlines. In the morning, Yang Guo was wiping Chi-Chi's mouth with a wet towel after drinking soy milk. Her mouth was covered with a layer of white foam. Her phone suddenly rang. The familiar Sky City startled Goldie, who was lying on the side and wagging its tail in boredom. Sigh. No. Before Poplar Fruit could stop it, Goldie happily jumped on the ground and ran to the sofa. It opened its mouth and bit Poplar Fruit's phone. Goldie! Poplar Fruit felt a headache as he watched the chubby Goldie run back and stand in front of him while wagging its tail. Poplar Fruit took back the phone from Goldie's big mouth, but it was already wet with Goldie's saliva. This guy didn't find the right way to curry favor. How could Poplar Fruit answer the phone? Seeing that her father's eyebrows were twitching and he was about to lose his temper, Kiki hurriedly stepped on Goldie's back and got down from the chair. She stood in front of Goldie, raised her head and said pitifully, "Papa, don't hit Goldie." Poplar Fruit just wanted to kick this guy and tell it not to bite things in the future, but Kiki stood in front of him, so he couldn't do anything. And at this time, the phone had been ringing for a long time. Poplar Fruit had to hold the phone with 2 fingers and answer the phone first. Poplar Fruit put it on speaker. While answering the phone, he wiped the phone with a tissue. It was a number he had saved a long time ago, but Poplar Fruit usually didn't want to disturb the old man. Previously, he would occasionally call him to ask questions about literature. In the past month, Poplar Fruit was too busy to take care of himself, so he didn't contact him. "Mr. Mo, hello." Poplar Fruit took the initiative to greet him with a smile. Poplar Fruit. "Haha, I don't want to chat with you anymore." Mo Yin seemed to be in a very good mood, and the sun was shining brightly in the morning. "Let me tell you a piece of good news." "Okay, I'm listening." Poplar Fruit smiled. Yesterday Sweden called. In fact, the old man had been on the phone the whole morning, but every time, he couldn't help but be so excited that his voice trembled. "Poplar Fruit, you won an award. You really won an award." "Sweden? Sweden. Poplar Fruit's eyes widened. He couldn't help but ask, Mr. Mo, the Nobel Prize in Literature? Is it true? It's true. Mo Yen laughed heartily. Professor Ma Yueren informed me personally. It's absolutely true. Congratulations. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. This is great news. The old man didn't need to be too modest in front of his friends. If he was happy, he would be happy. If he pretended to be calm, he wouldn't be modest, but proud. He laughed heartily and said, Poplar Fruit. In fact, I'm calling to thank you. If you didn't help me with the translation, my work wouldn't have been able to enter the eyes of the judges. Many people thought that Mo Yen won the Nobel Prize in Literature because of sandalwood punishment, but that wasn't the case. The award was given to Mo Yen personally, which meant that he had used many of his excellent works to impress the judges. Mo Yen himself knew that this included Life and Death Fatigue, Frog, and a few short works translated by Poplar Fruit. Don't. Poplar Fruit hurriedly said respectfully, You won the award because of the excellence of your own work. When I translated it, I was so touched that I was in a mess. I don't dare to be greedy for credit for this. Of course. The old man smiled and said, You're a good kid. I asked Professor Mayueran, and he said that he didn't translate as well as you. That's because Professor Ma is being modest. Poplar Fruit didn't dare to be proud. He said, Professor Ma is an expert in China, and he's very accomplished. How can I compare to him? No matter what. The old man smiled and said, I am not a pedantic person. When it comes to rewards, you and your friends in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have helped me a lot. It's only right for me to say a few words of thanks. This is what we should do, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In front of the national interest, Poplar Fruit was duty-bound to help. Compared to the two old men in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you, Poplar Fruit, are only in your early 20s this year, and you're already at such a level. Work hard, I have high hopes for you. The old man smiled and said, Continue to work hard in the future. The future belongs to you young people. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and said, Teacher Mo, please don't praise me anymore. If you praise me again, my butt will be raised to the sky. I still have a lot to learn from you. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to. Chapter 799. Aha, you're such a humble kid. The old man laughed heartily. Didn't you always ask me for advice? Since you're calling me teacher, I'll promise you that you'll be my student from now on. Don't think that old Master Mo Yen was too proud. Even before he won the Nobel Prize in Literature, old Master Mo was a master of literature in the country. He had won many awards in the country and abroad. The number of people who wanted to be his disciple could line up from Gaomi all the way to Beijing. The old man was a low-key person, and he rarely took in students. Until now, no one had seen any of his students showing off in public. Author's note. The characters and images are all fabricated. Don't compare them with reality. Poplar Fruit was overjoyed. He quickly said, Teacher, you're so nice. When will you be free? Since he was going to be a student, there had to be a banquet. In the past, Chen Zongdai stubbornly refused. What do you think? The old man smiled. How could I be free recently? The news hasn't spread yet. Look, the phone at home hasn't stopped ringing. Poplar Fruit smiled. He understood the troubles of being famous. He smiled and said, Okay, when you're free, I'll visit you and give you a gift. You can have a gift, but not a gift. The old man smiled. Oh, right, do you have any plans for December? December? Poplar Fruit wasn't a high official, nor was he a celebrity. Why would he plan his schedule 2 months apart? Plus, it would be cold at that time. Poplar Fruit should still be at home. Poplar Fruit answered honestly, No. That's good. The old man smiled and said, Then hurry up and get a passport. In December, I'll take you to Sweden. Poplar Fruit asked stupidly, Sweden? Award ceremony? I'll go too? Yeah. I'm looking for a Swedish translator. You did a good job last time, so I want you to help. The old man smiled and said, What's wrong? You don't want to translate for me for free? How could I not be willing? When Poplar Fruit heard this, he puffed out his chest and laughed. However, I'm a little puzzled. There should be a lot of people lining up to be teacher's disciple, right? Why would it be my turn? Poplar Fruit didn't say it explicitly, but Grandpa Sheng understood that Poplar Fruit meant that the country would send someone to accompany him to the award ceremony. After all, it was such a big event. The honor of the country and its people couldn't be missed. However, the old man said calmly, "It's not up to them to do whatever they want. I believe that we can still make the decision to appoint a translator." The old man laughed and said, "Of course, they will say that you are inexperienced and not strong enough. Poplar Fruit, let me ask you, if you were to have a fair fight with those disciples from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, do you have the confidence to defeat them?" Poplar Fruit had never considered this question, and he had never seen how strong the disciples from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs were. However, Poplar Fruit was confident in his own strength. This wasn't blind arrogance. Poplar Fruit believed that his mastery of Swedish, whether it was spoken or written, was not inferior to some of the experts in Sweden, let alone those non-native speakers. Since his teacher had confidence in him, Poplar Fruit couldn't admit defeat. He took a deep breath and said word by word, "Teacher, don't worry. I have confidence." "That's good." Grandpa Sheng smiled with relief. "Then you should prepare early. We will go to Sweden in December." After the phone call, Poplar Fruit glanced at Kiki and Gold. Kiki was holding her picture album and sitting on the ground, telling Gold, who was lying there, a story. Poplar Fruit listened carefully, and found that the little girl was telling Gold a story about a baby bear that he had told her before. She mixed it into the picture album and told it to Gold. However, Gold obviously didn't understand, and it was also very bored. It lay there with its ears drooping, like a little monster in Stephen Chow's Journey to the West. It was so annoyed by Tang Sanzang's nagging that it wanted to die. As if it felt the gaze of its master, Gold raised its head and looked at Poplar Fruit. It opened its mouth and wagged its tail. It wasn't clear whether it was expressing affection or apology. Poplar Fruit felt that it was the former. How could this idiot admit its mistake honestly? Poplar Fruit shook his head and ignored the two little guys. He first cleaned up the table, then found a wet towel to wipe the phone a few more times. It didn't feel good to be defiled by a dog. It couldn't be wiped away. After a while, the phone rang again. This time, it was Zheng Yujie calling. Poplar Fruit didn't answer the phone, but he knew what she wanted to say. "What, not angry anymore?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. He was talking about the day before yesterday when Poplar Fruit came back. He forgot to tell her. Then yesterday she somehow heard the news, probably from Xiong village. Kai Simin was still temporarily stationed there, and sent a long WeChat message saying that Poplar Fruit was bad. At the end, she sent a furious emoji. After that, Poplar Fruit called her and refused to answer. Poplar Fruit was also innocent. Not only Zheng Yujie. He didn't tell anyone when he came back, except for his family. Song Jiwen only told him because he wanted to drive Poplar Fruit. The main reason was that he was in the limelight before, so he wanted to hide it for a while. Of course, after Zheng Yujie flipped out, Poplar Fruit quickly replied to many WeChat apologies. Not to mention others, Zheng Yujie was so close to him. It was Poplar Fruit's fault that he didn't say anything. However, Zheng Yujie still refused to talk to him. Now that she knew that Old Master Mo had won the award, she couldn't sit still and had to put down her anger and take the initiative to call Poplar Fruit. "Angry? What's there to be angry about?" Zheng Yujie said against her heart. Her voice was still bright and unruly, but there was a bit of resentment hidden in her unruly voice. However, it was much better than the long WeChat message she sent. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "Okay, let's not dwell on it, okay? I already said that it was my fault. What a good child to know your mistakes and change." Humph. Zheng Yujie snorted twice, indicating that she hadn't completely forgiven him. However, she said, "I'm not calling to talk to you about this. Do you know what's the big news today?" As expected, Poplar Fruit laughed and said, "I know. The TV news today said that the sun rose from the west, causing the tides to be unstable. They strongly suggest that we stay at home and don't go anywhere. The earth is very dangerous." Poplar Fruit. You're messing around again, Zhang Yujie said angrily. She wanted to laugh, but thinking that she was still angry, she raised her voice slightly to cover her laughter. I'm talking to you about something serious. Do you still remember Mo Yen? Poplar Fruit chuckled and said, I remember. Teacher Mo Yen just called me. Poplar Fruit. Zhang Yujie finally flipped out. She didn't care about her image and shouted into the phone. Did you already know? Are you trying to make fun of me? Does everyone think that Poplar Fruit got his reputation by riding on someone's coattails? Little Han doesn't think so. Chapter 800. After messing around for a while, Zhang Yujie finally got down to business with Poplar Fruit. Only a short-sighted guy like Poplar Fruit would be ignorant and not notice the potential opportunity behind Teacher Mo Yan's award. If we immediately release Teacher Mo Yan's book on Amazon International Library, it will definitely be very popular. Zhang Yujie was furious with Poplar Fruit. She decided not to keep him in suspense and directly said to Poplar Fruit, It's rare to have such an opportunity. If we don't seize it, it will be a waste. The Nobel Prize attracts the attention of the whole world. Look at the winners of the Nobel Prize in Literature every year. Don't their books instantly become popular, and their global sales increase greatly? Even after a few years, as long as people think of the Nobel Prize in Literature, they will continue to buy their books. Zhang Yujie said. I understand. Poplar Fruit said. You want us to use Teacher Mo Yan's book to build the reputation of our publishing house, right? Poplar Fruit was not stupid. After Zhang Yujie's reminder, he immediately understood the relationship between the two. One had to know that the Nobel Prize in Literature was a golden signboard. After hearing that Mo Yen had won the award, those who had not read his books or did not know about him would want to search for him. As long as his books were on the market, there would definitely be a lack of attention. Zhang Yujie had never thought of making much money from Teacher Mo Yen. When she signed the contract with him, it was stated that if he won the award, the percentage of profits would increase by a certain amount. After deducting the channel fee, Teacher Mo Yen would get more than half of the profits. Of course, as long as the base was large enough, the publishing house could still make money. However, more importantly, they could earn enough attention from this. If 1 billion readers from different countries could learn about Teacher Mo Yan's books through Amazon, then 1/20th of them, which was 50 million people, would notice the publisher of these books and follow the trail. In the end, 5 million people would become their first fans. Then Poplar Fruit and Company would succeed. After all, Poplar Fruit himself had translated 5 of the most popular fantasy novels some time ago. He could feel that these web novels were actually quite attractive to Western readers. Although they did not have any obvious advantages over Western bestsellers, these novels had novel ideas and tempting plots. For the more modern Western life and fragmented reading, they were simply a cold and delicious Sunday in summer. However, after Poplar Fruit handed in the manuscript, Peng Yu was not very confident. This was because she knew that the Amazon International Library was a place where good and bad people mixed together. The huge library gave their users too many choices. Their newly established publishing house could easily be drowned in the vast sea of books. No matter how good a book was, if it was not discovered, it would only end up dying in silence. Don't think that all gold would shine. Nowadays, not many people would be willing to sift through the glittering gold grain by grain. They were working hard to continue preparing, breaking in the newly established team, and then patiently waiting for an opportunity, or thinking about a marketing plan that could make a name for themselves. In the end, the surprise really came. And it came very quickly. However, at this time, Zhang Yujie was still at Dongxin Publishing in the distant capital. At this time, Peng Yu had fully grasped the overall situation of the newly established publishing house. The old staff and the new staff were breaking in. She even had to recruit and poach people everywhere. It's okay. Even if it's a rush, we have to work overtime to grab this opportunity in our hands. Zhang Yujie was ambitious. She said in high spirits. I just called Auntie Peng. She's taking action now. Although the publishing house had bought the translation copyright of hundreds of thousands of web novels, in reality, the only reliable translator was Poplar Fruit. However, the good news was that in the past 6 months, Poplar Fruit had slowly accumulated 5 books, including Sandalwood Punishment and Fatigue of Life and Death, in 10 different languages. His original intention was to use the translation to improve his understanding of these foreign languages. The reason why the books could be translated into 10 different languages was that Mr. Mo Yen had sold the English translation copyright long ago, and Sanskrit wasn't suitable for publishing. There weren't many people who could understand Sanskrit nowadays. Of course, the French and Swedish copyright of Sandalwood Punishment had also been sold. So in total, Poplar Fruit had only provided about 40 translations. That was a lot. If this number was placed in front of others, it could be said that an author wouldn't be able to translate it even if he didn't eat or drink for 10 years. The reason why Poplar Fruit was so efficient was that he had mastered the 13 languages. Whether it was translating from Chinese to other languages, or from other languages to other languages, Poplar Fruit could still do it at his fingertips. When translating a book, he basically had a comprehensive understanding of the whole book during the first translation. In the following 9 translations, Poplar Fruit was like copying and pasting. It was as easy as eating and drinking. Of course, the word count was also a very important factor. Although there were 5 books, the word count was less than 2 million words. Compared with the 5 web novels translated by Poplar Fruit, the smallest one was more than 1 per million words, while the largest one was more than 5 million words. However, Poplar Fruit felt that translating web novels was way too easy for him. He could almost read and write at the same time, just like doing a parallel biography. It wasn't to say that web novels were easy books, but that web novels were basically a series of routines. Unlike traditional literature, one had to consider the background of the story, and the other had to consider whether the author was playing word games or not. Poplar Fruit felt that he could finish one web novel that focused on the plot of the story in a week, and that was only after spending 2 hours every night. Zheng Yujie told Poplar Fruit that the publishing house was doing 2 things. One was to quickly proofread, typeset, and design the translations of Mo Yan's novels that Poplar Fruit had handed in to achieve the best results for publication. Amazon International Library could be printed into books. The other thing was that Pang Yu would personally lead the publishing house's most elite marketing team to the US tonight to negotiate with Amazon to strive for the best marketing resources. What did Poplar Fruit need to do? He didn't need to worry about the business side. Poplar Fruit only needed to spend more time translating the remaining 6 novels that Mo Yen had provided to them, which still had English copyrights. They wanted to play a role in the second wave of marketing war. Speed was the most important thing in war. The Nobel Prize had just been announced, and Poplar Fruit felt that the world had begun to go crazy again. Xiao Han said that Mr. Mo was just an opportunity. Poplar Fruit wouldn't rely on him. He would conquer the world with his own strength. Chapter 801. While Mr. Mo Yen attracted all the attention, the popularity of Poplar Fruit in Bali Fashion Week finally died down. Although the translation work had increased, Poplar Fruit's life didn't change much. During the day, he still had time to read books, play with his gold, and play with his friends with Kiki. Sometimes, when Kiki was playing with Chun Zongdai's kids, he would go to the student activity center to teach the kids in Xiong village. Therefore, some people would ask, as a graduate student, doesn't Poplar Fruit need to attend classes? Indeed, he didn't need to. Poplar Fruit was no longer an ordinary student. Not only Chun Zongdai, but the other teachers in the school also thought so. If they really wanted Poplar Fruit to attend their classes, they wouldn't want to. Damn it. You're better than me. Aren't you trying to ruin my reputation by attending my classes? Therefore, Poplar Fruit was given special permission by the school. He didn't need to attend classes like the other students. He only needed to take the final exam. If he scored more than 80 points, the credit would be his. That's right. For Poplar Fruit, there was no such thing as passing with 60 points. The next day, Poplar Fruit started to feel bored in the teacher's dormitory. Unlike Kiki, he didn't want to go out, but Fong Beibei wouldn't come back until the next day, so there was no one to talk to. Poplar Fruit worked as a translator for a couple of hours, so he felt that he needed to go out and have some fun. Therefore, he drove to Song Jiwen's place. It was the weekend. He was supposed to go to Chen Anlin's new Tai Chi dojo. Song Jiwen and her had been working on the renovation of the dojo. However, Poplar Fruit didn't want Kiki to smell the formaldehyde, so he told them to come back early and have dinner together. Wait. Yang stood at the door and stopped Song Jiwen, who was about to rush into the private room, with a smile. Have you taken a shower? Let me see if there's any scent left. Do I even need to smell it? Song Jiwen had been warned by Poplar Fruit to remove the smell before coming over. He said angrily, Look, my hair is still wet. Can't you see that I'm taking a shower? Poplar Fruit chuckled. Your hair isn't dry yet. Let's go outside and dry it before coming back. Song Jiwen rolled his eyes and punched Poplar Fruit hard. He knew that Poplar Fruit wouldn't feel pain. Then he said, Get lost. Could it be that in lawn you want to go up and sniff too? Poplar Fruit laughed. He felt that Song Jiwen had been hanging out with Chen Anlin recently. He had even learned a lot of northern dialects. Chen Anlin said seriously, Brother Yang, it's nothing. He's doing it for Kiki. Song Jiwen was speechless. He glanced at Chen Anlin and said, Miss, I'm helping you, okay? I say, old Gua, don't mess around. She committed a serious crime of harassment. Hey. Chen Anlin pushed Song Jiwen away. Song Jiwen couldn't resist. Chen Anlin said boldly, I don't care. Why do you care? Seeing Song Jiwen's depressed look, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Okay, I was just joking with Mosquito. Don't take it seriously. Why would I touch you? Back in the private room, Kiki and Goldie each occupied a chair. Kiki was still sitting high in the child's seat. Her four eyes looked at them as they walked in. Song Jiwen whistled, and then Poplar Fruit saw Goldie jump down from the chair and run up. Song Jiwen took out a bag of dog biscuits and stuffed two into Goldie's mouth. Poplar Fruit looked speechlessly at Song Jiwen's proud look. He seemed to be saying, See, I'm more popular than you, the owner. Poplar Fruit snatched the dog biscuits from Song Jiwen's hand and scolded, Mosquito, don't feed him. I've been trying to help him lose weight recently. Look at how fat he has become after being with you for a month. What do you mean fat? This is clearly healthy, okay? Song Jiwen looked at Poplar Fruit with disdain, and asked Chen Anlin to sit down. He continued, Don't you think the color of Goldie's fur looks a lot better? Puppies in the growth stage need to eat more and have enough nutrition. It was right to have enough nutrition, but Goldie was obviously overnourished. Poplar Fruit didn't want to see a fat ball running with small steps in the future. That was really too ugly. Unlike Goldie, Kiki didn't have much to say to Song Jiwen. Instead, she liked to be held by sister Song Jiwen, and chatted with her about her interesting experiences abroad. This was a historical record. When Kiki was younger, Song Jiwen liked to secretly eat the delicious food that the Poplar Fruit made for Kiki. From then on, Kiki hated him in her heart. Sister Anlin. Kiki clung to Chen Anlin's head and whispered in her ear, Can Kiki go home with you to play? Okay, sister welcomes you very much. Chen Anlin laughed and said, Welcome what? Poplar Fruit's ears were very sharp, so he asked curiously. Oh, Kiki reached out and covered half of Chen Anlin's mouth. She anxiously said coquettishly, Sister Anlin, don't tell Papa. That won't do. Poplar Fruit pulled a chair over with a smile and said, Kiki, be honest. What are you hiding from Dad again? Kiki pouted for a while, then said shyly, Kiki wants to go to Uncle Mosquito's house to watch TV. What TV? Chen Anlin laughed and said, Kiki, tell Sister, what program do you want to watch? Sister will help you download it on the internet, and you can watch it on the computer. Kiki's eyes lit up. Holding Chen Anlin's hand, she nodded happily and said, Kiki likes to watch Pleasant Goat. Don't. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Anlin, don't listen to her. I'm trying to reduce Kiki's time to watch TV and the computer. Foreign education for children emphasizes that children should participate in more creative and imaginative activities instead of watching TV every day. Before returning to China, Poplar Fruit had communicated with Linda. She was a full-time mother and often attended some children's education classes. She told Poplar Fruit that research showed that if children watched TV for more than 1.5 hours a week, they would learn to play the roles on TV, and their imagination would be hindered. In fact, hands-on games like drawing could stimulate children's creativity and have a good effect on their intellectual development. If Kiki was not too young, Poplar Fruit was prepared to let her play some hands-on games like sewing dolls by herself. Deeply understanding his previous mistakes, Poplar Fruit, as a parent, bought a lot of parenting books from abroad. He read the books and made notes, and then Fong Beibei watched him translate and summarize the main points, urging him to continue working hard to be a qualified father. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 802. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were chatting about each other's recent situation while eating. Poplar Fruit and Song Jiwen were brothers who talked about everything. He and Song Jiwen could freely complain about the troubles caused by the recent media exposure of his life. Although I have tried my best to keep a low profile, sometimes I will be recognized when I go out to buy things. Fortunately, I am not a star who has acted in a big movie, so I am not chased and blocked. Poplar Fruit laughed. Song Jiwen said indifferently, "What's the matter? Didn't you cut your hair short now? You might as well deny it and say that you are not the model Poplar Fruit." Poplar Fruit smiled and pointed to Kiki, whose mouth was full of cream, and said, "You are wrong. No matter how I pretend to dress up, it can't be helped. Because as long as people see Kiki, they will immediately connect me with the one in the newspaper. What's more annoying is that there are students in the school who come to me for autographs, and they also come to Kiki for autographs. Unfortunately, Kiki doesn't know how to write." "Ha!" Poplar Fruit laughed. "It's okay. As long as you don't continue to be in the limelight, no one will pay attention to you in a few days." Song Jiwen waved his hand and said. He knew that Poplar Fruit was the same as him. He was an otaku and lazy guy. Being famous was so troublesome. Poplar Fruit would definitely avoid it like a snake or scorpion. "I am going to participate in a fast game next week. I guess I can't keep a low profile." Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly. "Forget it. Let's not talk about me. When is your Tai Chi martial arts school going to open?" "It's not ours. It's in Lan's Tai Chi martial arts school." Song Jiwen corrected Poplar Fruit's mistake. "Hey, do you want to wash your hands of it?" Chen Anlin elbowed him and said, "You forgot that in the name of Wenlan Martial Arts School, Wenlan is yours." "But you are a shareholder." Song Jiwen protested, but he felt that his momentum was weak. "I said to let you be a shareholder. You didn't agree." Chen Anlin glared at him and said, "Sister, I am buying a house, okay? I am not a rich person like Poplar Fruit who can spend a lot of money. In order to be neighbors with him, I have to sell everything I have." Song Jiwen complained. Before going to Bali, Poplar Fruit told Song Jiwen that he was buying a house. This guy was stimulated and shamelessly wanted to buy a house near Poplar Fruit's house to be neighbors with Poplar Fruit. It was not as exaggerated as what Song Jiwen said. His family still had some foundation. After paying 60% of the down payment, Song Jiwen paid 4,000 yuan a month for the rest of the money, so it was not a big deal. Poplar Fruit originally wanted to lend Song Jiwen money in full to buy a house, but this guy was not willing. He said that the accumulation fund was so high that there was no need to waste it. Poplar Fruit thought that he was too proud to lend him money. "Mosquito don't make trouble," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Enlon is in trouble. Will you leave her alone?" "Enlon, he is just saying. Don't take it to heart. This guy is just stubborn." "I know," Chen Anlin said with a smile. She looked at Song Jiwen and said, "You can be my part-time CEO. I can give you a salary." Song Jiwen curled his lips in disdain and said, "Forget it. You want to hire a CEO for your small martial arts club? The money you earn may not even be enough for your pocket money." Chen Anlin said with a smile, "That depends on your level. If you manage it well, I will split the money with you." Chen Anlin was a martial artist and spoke with a heroic spirit. Song Jiwen waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I don't need your money. I will help you manage it for free. Anyway, I have nothing to do." "But, didn't you say that you want to use your own theory to build a new martial arts club?" Poplar Fruit watched them bicker with a smile. Chen Anlin waved her hand and said with a domineering smile, "No matter how mighty a general is, He still needs a strategist's planning. I am the general who opens up new territory. You are the little strategist who helps me come up with plans. I have a new operating theory, and you will help me sort it out. Song Ji-won curled his lips and said, "What new theory? Isn't it just using WeChat and Weibo to promote it? Let me tell you, if you only rely on this method, you won't be able to attract customers. Do you think those children who like to play and enjoy freedom will be attracted by your WeChat and Weibo?" Song Ji-won said with a smile. "Of course, if you invite Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan to help you shoot videos, there might be a chance." "That's impossible," Chun Anlin said with dissatisfaction. She was a little discouraged. "Then we can invite Brother Yang." Chun Anlin's eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Poplar Fruit and said with some expectation, "Brother Yang's skills are so good. If you record a video and send it out, they will definitely worship you." When Chun Anlin mentioned Poplar Fruit, she didn't think of using Poplar Fruit's fame. She only thought of martial arts. "No problem," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "If you need my help, just let me know." "That's great," Chun Anlin said gratefully. "Don't be happy too early." Song Ji-won poured a bucket of cold water on her and said, "Your target group is the group of students who use mobile phones a lot, but in fact they don't have the final say. In the end, whether they participate in the Tai Chi training class or not depends on their parents, mainly on their mother's face." Song Ji-won smiled and said, "You may not feel this way. The children in the city participate in all kinds of training classes, and there are only a few that they like. Isn't it because their parents force them?" Chun Anlin was confused by his words. She asked confusedly, "Do you mean that my marketing plan will not work at all?" "That's not it." Song Ji-won smiled brightly and said, "What I mean is that your plan has a premise, and that is you have to deal with the parents of the children. I have confidence in dealing with the children, but I have no way to deal with the parents." Chun Anlin was so worried that her eyebrows were wrinkled. Song Ji-won stretched out his hand and played with Chun Anlin's slanted eyebrows. Chun Anlin angrily slapped his hand away. He smiled and said, "It's okay if you don't have any ideas and confidence. You still have me." Song Ji-won turned his head and looked at Poplar Fruit, who was sitting on the side and was still wolfing down his food. He smiled and said, "It's easy to deal with the parents and grandparents of the children. You just have to understand their interests and hobbies. Laogua, tell Lan, what kind of sports do the uncles and aunties like to do?" Poplar Fruit picked up a tissue and wiped his mouth. He raised his head and said with a smile, "What else can it be? Let's square dance." This question was really easy to answer. Recently, the square dancing incident had been in the news. Of course, there were more complaints. However, it was undeniable that square dancing had occupied the world of middle-aged and old people. Some time ago, Poplar Fruit called home and heard from his sister that his mother and father went square dancing every day. They even formed a team and prepared to participate in the competition. Little Lin Jie had been led astray by them. In a video sent to him by his sister, little Lin Jie also swayed and danced with his mother. It was really funny. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 803. That's right. Song Ji-won smiled and said, "Square dancing is our entry point." "Are you kidding me?" Chun Anlin glared at him and said discontentedly, "What's square dancing? Do I know how to square dance? You're just saying useless things." "You know Tai Chi, right?" Song Ji-won asked. "If you know Tai Chi, don't you know a few sets of health-preserving boxing techniques? My grandfather practices Tai Chi sword every day." He didn't hold back with Chun Anlin. The two of them always spoke with a little anger. "You want me to teach uncles and aunties Tai Chi?" Chun Anlin was furious with Song Ji-won. She was so angry that she laughed and said, "My Tai Chi is used to kill enemies and defend myself. How can it be compared to your so-called square dancing?" Poplar Fruit quickly mediated. He held down Song Ji-won and smiled at Chun Anlin. "Lan, don't be angry. Mosquito didn't mean that." "What do you mean that?" Song Ji-won's voice also began to rise. He straightened his neck and said, "I'm teaching her a good method out of kindness. What's with her attitude? If you want to open a martial arts club and make money, you have to put down your high and mighty attitude first. Mosquito, you're not a child anymore. Poplar Fruit stared at him and scolded. Why are you throwing a tantrum with a girl? Can't you just explain it to Anlan? Poplar Fruit smiled at Chen Anlin and said, Anlan, don't pay attention to his bad temper. In fact, he's doing it for your own good. Think about it. In modern society, how many people want to practice martial arts that no one can beat? Even if they're motivated by TV dramas and martial arts novels, not many people have the perseverance to persevere. After all, pure martial artists like you and me are very few. Chen Anlin bit her lower lip and nodded. She said, I understand what you mean. In fact, my family often says that a martial arts club needs to be down to earth, but I really can't lift my head and dance with those uncles and aunties. I always feel embarrassed. This was the pure, I understand the reason. Song Jiwen calmed down at this time. He shook his head and said, Let me tell you an example. My mom met her too. She's also obsessed with square dancing this year. I know that. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, My mother was the one who encouraged my mother to dance. She told me something. There was a young man in their line team. He was young, about 25 or 26 years old. She didn't have a high education level either. She graduated from a technical secondary school, but she had a sweet mouth and was willing to practice dancing with them. Not only that, but he also learned from everywhere. After he learned a new dance style, he came back and taught it to my mother. Anyway, my mother especially liked this young man. Song Jiwen smiled and said. Chen Anlin was gradually attracted by Song Jiwen's story. She put her elbow on the table and held her cute baby face with one hand. She looked at Song Jiwen in a daze. This young man is actually a financial manager of a bank. Don't underestimate him. He started off by selling credit cards and worked his way up to this position step by step. Song Jiwen laughed. His main purpose of square dancing is to expand his customer base. Because of trust, many aunties in my mother's line dance team are willing to pay for his financial products. Song Jiwen smiled and said, Pay attention, he's not a swindler. Aunties nowadays are not that stupid. They can tell if it's for their own good or if it's for their own money. When that young man was promoting financial products, he was sincerely analyzing it with them and choosing financial products for them to make money. The main problem isn't it the same no matter who they buy the financial products from? It's better to buy from this young man who is familiar with them and knows that he has a good heart. Song Jiwen said. Poplar Fruit nodded and smiled. Then isn't his performance super good? Poplar Fruit knew that his godparents lived in a high-end neighborhood. Those aunties who did line dance must be rich. Yes. Song Jiwen smiled and said, Just this year, a conservative estimate, he pulled in 30 million. Poplar Fruit nodded and said, He did dig up a gold mine. Haha, to be honest, those aunties and uncles who do line dance are really rich. They have time and money. I don't mean for Anlan to rope in these aunties and uncles to cheat money. Song Jiwen explained. I'm just saying that if Anlan has a good relationship with the aunties and grandparents near our martial arts center, then through the attractiveness of our martial arts center, they will be very willing to send their children to study here. Moreover, if anyone mentions Wanlan Martial Arts Center, someone will immediately say, Oh, isn't it opened by that beautiful and well-behaved little girl? I've seen her before. She's a young master who really knows Kung Fu. It's definitely right to ask her to learn Tai Chi. Song Jiwen smiled. Chen Anlin said hesitantly, But I don't know how to do it. She understood the psychological needs of children of her age or younger. She was completely confused about the older aunties and uncles. It's okay. Poplar Fruit patted Song Jiwen's shoulder and said with a smile, Mosquito will help you. This guy has the sweetest mouth. He's the best at deceiving aunties and uncles. Song Jiwen glanced at Poplar Fruit, who had no sense of loyalty, and pushed him into the fire pit, but he didn't refute. He nodded and said, Yes, don't worry. I'll give you some advice. Actually, I had this idea when we were choosing the location. Also, I can take you to ask my mother. She dances line dance every day. She can teach you how to get into this group. Chen Anlin's face turned red. She stammered and did not say anything. Poplar Fruit said excitedly. I can help too. Recently, I've been studying how to create my own martial arts. Later, I'll find some health-preserving boxing to study, and see if I can combine it with Tai Chi to create an easy-to-learn health-preserving Kung Fu. After returning, he did spend some time on martial arts. Kiki's Benben Fist was a semi-finished product. Poplar Fruit wanted to further improve it, and create a simple self-defense Kung Fu. Then he would teach it to the children in Xiong village. Song Jiwen nodded and said, Yes, indeed, we should prepare for both sides. In the martial arts center, we will teach real Kung Fu. Outside, we will teach the uncles and aunties some easy-to-learn health-preserving Kung Fu. Lao Gua, can you see if you can combine it with square dancing? If this Kung Fu has a clear sense of rhythm and toxicity, it'll be even better, Song Jiwen said with a smile. How did the hottest ethnic style line dance become so popular? Isn't it because their rhythm is too good? Isn't that too difficult? Chen Anlin felt injustice for Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile. I can only say that I'll try my best. For a guy like him who was born unable to find the rhythm, it was almost impossible for him to integrate the rhythm of line dance into his newly created Kung Fu. However, Poplar Fruit still agreed. He was thinking that when the time came, he would bring Fong Beibei, who sang very well, to study it together, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 804. There was good news from the United States. The marketing team led by Peng Yu's aunt had a smooth negotiation with Amazon. Amazon was very happy that their publishing house was willing to use their platform to publish this year's Nobel Prize in Literature winner's novel. They promised to provide a lot of recommendation resources. However, Peng Yu's aunt was still not satisfied. She did not make a move and continued to negotiate. She wanted to get more promises that would help the publishing house's future development. This had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. He was very happy today, because Fong Beibei had finally returned from home. Poplar Fruit still drove to pick up his girlfriend. This time, because Fong Beibei's mother sent Fong Beibei to the bus, Poplar Fruit did not wait for her near her home. Instead, he drove to the bus stop in front. After Fong Beibei got on the bus, she got out at the next stop. Sister Beibei. Papa, Sister Beibei is over there. Kiki and Goldie were playing in the back of the car. Suddenly, Goldie barked twice. Kiki subconsciously raised her head to look out of the car. She happily patted the car window and barked at her father in front. Poplar Fruit had been waiting for a long time. He was scrolling through Weibo with his phone. Recently, he had gained a lot of fans on Weibo, and there were all kinds of comments. Poplar Fruit simply turned off the notifications for unfollowed people. He only opened the comments section to take a look when he was interested. Recently, he had been following Old Master Mo Yan's Weibo. Old Master Mo Yan rarely posted on Weibo. Basically, he did not appear on Weibo for a year. Yesterday, he posted, "Thank you to my friends on Weibo for your affirmation of me, and thank you for your criticism." Poplar Fruit knew what was going on. Recently, the public opinion was divided into two groups. One group supported him and said that he was the pride of the people. The other group did not even read the book and listen to other people's nonsense. They scolded Old Master Mo Yan's works for being vulgar. Poplar Fruit reposted Old Master Mo Yan's Weibo. However, he did not comment on it. Instead, he said with emotion, "Only real gold can stand the test of time. Teacher Mo Yan has devoted himself to literature for nearly 40 years. He has finally won the recognition of the world. We should congratulate him." Hearing Kiki scream, Poplar Fruit put away his phone and looked out of the window. He saw Fong Beibei standing at the bus stop and looking around, trying to find him. Among the crowd, Poplar Fruit only saw the pretty Fong Beibei. Today, she was wearing a slim black t-shirt with long sleeves. However, the sleeves were rolled up to her elbows, revealing her fair arms. She was wearing a pair of black pencil jeans. Her slim legs were not even as thick as Poplar Fruit's forearms. Seeing Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit hurriedly opened the car door and got off. He walked up to her and took the two big bags from her with a smile. However, Fong Beibei only called out to him, and then quickly ran in the direction of the car. She carried Chi-Chi, who had slipped out of the car at some point in time. Hee 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 hee. Kiki grinned happily. Fong Beibei frowned and patted Kiki's but gently. She looked at Poplar Fruit with blame and said, "Uncle, how can you be so careless? You didn't close the car door properly and got off the car." Kiki ran out. If you weren't careful, what should we do?" Fong Beibei was really angry at Poplar Fruit. It was indeed dangerous just now. Kiki opened the car door herself and stepped on the gold to jump off the car. Fong Beibei caught her on the sidewalk on the side of the road. After all, there were also cars flying around on the sidewalk in China. Poplar Fruit sincerely accepted Fong Beibei's lesson. He was also overjoyed when he saw Fong Beibei, and forgot to lock the car door before picking her up. He didn't expect that Kiki, who had never shown it before, had learned how to open the car door. However, thinking about Poplar Fruit, he understood. As early as half a year ago, Kiki knew how to open the door. What was so difficult about learning how to open the car door? It seemed like he really had to be careful of Kiki in the future. Being too smart wasn't necessarily a good thing. Kiki didn't have the awareness of danger like an adult. Back in the car, the unpleasant things were swept away. Fong Beibei sat in the passenger seat happily. She played with the bags in her hands and said to Poplar Fruit, "Uncle, this time, my mom asked me to bring a lot of delicious food. Originally, I said that I was going to give it to my roommate, but now that my roommate is you, you're in luck." Poplar Fruit reached over, pulled the seatbelt, and intimately fastened Fong Beibei's seatbelt. He smiled and said, "Aren't you going to leave some for your former roommate? When Shanshan saw her the day before yesterday, she was still nagging you to bring some delicious food back for her." Fong Beibei expressed her disdain for her foodie best friend. She smiled and said, "No, I'll take half of it back to the dormitory for them to eat. By the way, did I tell you? Yanni is in love again." It's normal for her to be in love. Poplar Fruit was driving and chatting with Fong Beibei. "She's also a great beauty. Although she's not as beautiful as you, there must be a lot of boys chasing after her. It's not the boys at school. I heard from Sister Hua that he seems to be a member of society, and he's almost 30 years old." Fong Beibei said worriedly. "Yanni is also moving out." Poplar Fruit was silent for a moment, then comforted her. "Wu Yanni has made her own decision, and she can only bear the risks. We can't interfere." "I know, but I'm afraid that she's thinking about it because she saw me move out." "Forget it, let's not talk about her." Fong Beibei waved her hand and said. She found a plastic box from the bag and opened the lid. Inside it were strawberries that had been washed clean. Fong Beibei smiled and handed one to Kiki, who was sitting in the back. Then, she took out another one and stuffed it into Poplar Fruit's mouth. Then, she looked at Poplar Fruit's handsome face and saw him eating with his mouth full. She smiled and asked, "Is it delicious? I picked and washed it myself." "It's so sweet." Poplar Fruit smiled and praised. "You should eat it too. Where did you pick it?" "There's some in my uncle's field." Fong Beibei didn't eat it herself, but when she heard Poplar Fruit say that it was delicious, her eyes curved into beautiful crescents. She took out another one and fed it to Poplar Fruit's mouth. "What other delicious food did you take?" "I smell spicy." Poplar Fruit smelled a strong fragrance and asked curiously, "There's also chestnuts and peanuts." "Spicy, that's crayfish." Fong Beibei happily opened the lid of a food container, revealing the bright red and beautiful crayfish inside. They were all stir-fried. She even brought it to Poplar Fruit's nose and let Poplar Fruit smell it. "Does it smell good?" Poplar Fruit of course nodded and praised. "It smells good. Your mother's cooking is very good. The crayfish is very delicious." As a non-professional chef, he could smell the heat of this dish. "Then I'll keep this. When we go back, I'll give it to you and Kiki to eat." Fong Beibei happily closed the lid. "Kiki doesn't eat spicy food. Have you forgotten?" Poplar Fruit reminded. At this time, Kiki's muffled voice came from the back seat. No, Kiki doesn't want spicy food." It turned out that the little girl immediately covered her mouth and nose when she smelled the spicy food, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 805. With a woman in the house, The atmosphere was much better. After picking up Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit rolled up his sleeves and ran to the kitchen to wash the vegetables that he had bought earlier. Fong Beibei wanted to help him, but Poplar Fruit said that it was a happy occasion for her to come back today, so he didn't want her to be tired. Thus, he chased her to the living room to play with Kiki. The kitchen was steaming. Poplar Fruit looked outside and saw the smiles on their faces. He felt extremely happy. Even when he became famous in Bali, and almost everyone revolved around him, he was not as happy as he was today. In order to welcome Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit cooked 5 dishes, including 3 meat and 2 vegetable dishes. In addition, there was a pot of fish head soup that was as fragrant as milk. Today's dinner could be said to be a little too sumptuous. After all, including Kiki, there were only 2.5 of them. Oh, Fong Beibei imitated Kiki's coquettish nasal voice. She held onto the chair and said to Poplar Fruit, "Uncle, are you trying to fatten me up? You eat fish and meat every day at home, but you still cook so many dishes when you come back." "Yes, I'll fatten you up." Poplar Fruit stood in front of Fong Beibei. He placed his hands on Fong Beibei's bony shoulder blades and gently stroked them. He smiled and said, "You're so beautiful. If I don't fatten you up, I won't be at ease." Fong Beibei hadn't responded yet. Kiki stood on the chair and waved with one hand. She touched her round belly with the other hand and said happily, "Kiki is also very beautiful. Papa said that Kiki needs to eat until she's full and fat, so that she can grow up quickly." Although the logic seemed to be similar, in fact, they were not talking about the same thing. Fong Beibei giggled. She hugged Kiki, but her right hand secretly pinched Poplar Fruit's waist and said, "Sister Beibei doesn't want to get fat. Girls don't look good when they get fat." Then what should we do?" Kiki hesitantly looked at the fragrant fish soup that her father had scooped out of her small bowl on the table. On one hand, it was an irresistible delicacy. On the other hand, Kiki cared a lot about her beauty. She really didn't know how to choose. Seeing Kiki holding her cheeks and sighing like an adult, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "Sister Beibei lied to you. No matter how much Kiki ate, she wouldn't get fat. Besides, didn't Kiki exercise with her father in the morning? As long as she works hard, Kiki will also be beautiful." Fong Beibei giggled. "What are you laughing at?" Poplar Fruit pinched Fong Beibei's nose and said with a smile, "You're just scaring Kiki. I'm serious. Also, let's exercise together in the morning, okay? Don't sit all the time. It's great to run in the morning, breathe in the fresh air, and watch the sunrise." "But you get up so early every day." Fong Beibei pouted and shook off Poplar Fruit's big hand. She said, "I can't do that. I'll be sleepy if I don't get enough sleep." "You go to bed before 11:30 p.m. and get up at 6:30 a.m. That way, you'll get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. You'll sleep for another hour at noon. That's enough." Poplar Fruit calculated a scientific schedule for Fong Beibei. "You'll find that your mental state is getting better and better after a few days. What about you? Don't you get up at 4 o'clock? Fong Beibei asked. She had lived with Poplar Fruit for so long, so she knew that Poplar Fruit was different from ordinary people. He only needed 3 hours of sleep a day. Poplar Fruit smiled. He took Kiki over and put her on her special chair, so that Fong Beibei could have her soup and eat. He said, "After I came back, I adjusted my schedule. I'll sleep a little later at night, and then I'll wake up with you in the morning." Fong Beibei blushed when she saw Poplar Fruit's sparkling eyes. She remembered that Poplar Fruit said that Poplar Fruit thought that the happiest thing was when 2 people opened their eyes at the same time facing the morning sun, and saw each other's warm smile at first sight. Chapter 45. The fish soup was very fragrant and sweet, but it was not as sweet as the inner happiness. In Poplar Fruit's house, Goldie's food had always been much better than other people's dogs. Poplar Fruit always gave it delicious food early, instead of waiting until the end of the meal to give it leftovers. Goldie also ate in the dining room. Of course, Poplar Fruit spread out a piece of newspaper for it to eat. This guy was quite well behaved when eating, and did not spread the newspaper everywhere. Not only that, Fong Beibei also picked up some bones for Goldie to eat. It did not care if its master had eaten it before. Anyway, the taste of the bones was a delicacy to it. "Kiki, give it to me too," Seeing Fong Beibei turn around, squat down and come back again, Chi-Chi also wanted to join in the fun. She pressed down on her father's hand, remotely controlled her little spoon, and scooped out a spoonful of rice from her little bowl. However, even though Poplar Fruit's hand was very steady, Kiki kept grabbing, and some of the rice was scattered outside. "Don't scatter the food." Poplar Fruit frowned and used his hand to push the scattered rice to the side. He would continue to clean it up later. However, her father's expression did not scare Kiki. She was still restless and wanted to look at Goldie. Goldie said, "Thank you, Kiki," Fong Beibei said with a smile. But Goldie also said that it has enough food. "You don't have to trouble Kiki." Okay. Kiki moved her small butt, sat properly, and let go of her father's hand. Fong Beibei still had a way. In the evening, Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei sat on the sofa and used the iPad to watch variety shows and chat. When they talked about the few days that Fong Beibei had been home, Poplar Fruit smiled and asked, "Oh yeah, after you went back, did your father mention that matter again?" Fong Beibei curled her lips and said helplessly, "Yes. It was so annoying. Originally, my parents didn't want to talk about me, but Uncle and his family came over for dinner and talked about my news at the dinner table. Then my father was unhappy." "Did he scold you?" Poplar Fruit put his hand on Fong Beibei's shoulder to comfort her. "He didn't scold me." Fong Beibei pouted and said with a little grievance. "He said that girls should know how to love themselves outside and not be used by others. If your reputation is ruined, you won't be able to get married in the future." Poplar Fruit smiled and patted his chest and said, "How can you not be able to get married? You can tell your father that you don't have to worry about marriage at all. Poplar Fruit has been waiting there for a long time, waiting to marry your daughter." "Who said I'm going to marry you?" Fong Beibei shyly pushed Poplar Fruit's chest and smiled. "If I really told him, then my father would definitely come after you with a broom." "No way. I think I should be quite popular with father-in-law." Poplar Fruit smiled. "Don't say that." Fong Beibei straightened up and grabbed Poplar Fruit's mouth. She looked into Poplar Fruit's eyes. Although she was smiling, there was still some worry in her eyes. Poplar Fruit understood that Fong Beibei had always been worried that her father wouldn't be able to tolerate the fact that she had a daughter. Therefore, she didn't know how to hide her relationship with Poplar Fruit. "Baby, don't be afraid." Poplar Fruit gently kissed Fong Beibei's mouth and said, "You have me. No matter how difficult the future is, I will try my best to get your family's approval." Looking for monthly votes. Looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 806. Poplar Fruit didn't expect such a busy man like Uncle Sukai and Uncle Jean to come looking for him. Moreover, they were meeting at a place as classy as a cafe. "This is your sister-in-law's cafe." Uncle Jean was holding a cup of hot cappuccino as he chatted with Poplar Fruit, while leaning against the fence of the children's play area. "My sister-in-law is really good at business," Poplar Fruit praised. He was quite happy to see Kiki happily playing with the other customers' children in the play area. Uncle Jin's cafe was located in the most luxurious and upscale CBD of Yangcheng. It occupied a large area and was divided into 2 floors. Even in this bustling and competitive upscale business district, Uncle Jin's cafe was comparable to Starbucks and Shangdao, which had been famous for a long time. That was because Uncle Jin's cafe had a warm theme. Customers could leisurely enjoy the quiet time in the cafe. They could also enjoy a loving couple's world. On the 2nd floor, Uncle Jean had thoughtfully set up a children's play area, so that parents who worked hard to take care of their children could have a break in the cafe. That was because their children could play to their heart's content in the children's play area. They didn't need to be in a hurry to take care of them. It was similar to fast food restaurants like Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's. However, Uncle Jin's cafe was more meticulous and considerate. It was more in line with Chinese habits. "Ihi, come more often when you're free. I'll ask my sister-in-law to waive the bill for you." Uncle Jean patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and smiled. He pulled Poplar Fruit back to his seat. This time he didn't ask Poplar Fruit out just for coffee. He had something important to discuss with Poplar Fruit. "Have you heard about the Nobel Prize in Literature?" Uncle Gene asked while sipping his coffee. Poplar Fruit smiled. This matter was actually related to him and Uncle Gene. Back then, Poplar Fruit met Mo Yen, who was Uncle Jin's mentor. Of course, Teacher Mo called me that morning to tell me, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Now he is a banner of our country's literary world. Uncle Gene nodded and said, Yes, I was also shocked when I heard the news. To tell you the truth, at the beginning of the year, I was very excited when I met that Swede with you. But deep down, I still thought that Mr. Mo Yen was just there to accompany us. I didn't have much hope. Who wasn't like that? The country had been yearning for a Nobel Prize for so many years, but hadn't it come to nothing every year? Poplar Fruit couldn't believe it at first. He was afraid that all his efforts would be in vain. But Mr. Mo Yen really got the award. Uncle Gene sighed and said, You have no idea how excited the whole country is. We in the education field are still discussing whether we should include Mr. Mo Yan's essay in our textbooks. That's impossible, right? Poplar Fruit laughed. Although Uncle Gene was his mentor, Poplar Fruit still had basic judgment. His grandpa's books were more realistic, unlike Lu Sun's books, which talked about the righteousness of the country and read about red sorghum. Such a heavy novel wasn't suitable for primary and secondary school students. Yes, Uncle Gene smiled and said, but this is their problem. It has nothing to do with me. When I saw the news, I thought of you and thought that you're going to be rich. You're Mr. Mo Yan's chief translator. No, I'm not the chief translator. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said with a smile, I'm just one of the many translators. Anyway, you've contributed a lot. Uncle Gene said, I asked you to come here today to talk to you about something else. In the past 2 years, the education field in Guangdong province has been mediocre. We didn't get any awards in the country. You might not know this since you're in school, but as the leaders of the education department, we're under a lot of pressure. Uncle Gene said with a bitter smile, We can't raise our heads without any awards year after year. Poplar Fruit had an ominous feeling. He looked at Uncle Gene nervously. When I saw the news about Mr. Mo Yen, the first person I thought of was you. Uncle Gene looked at him with bright eyes and said, Later, I checked on the internet and found that I was really ignorant. You're already a celebrity. That's all in the past. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, Uncle Gene, you know me. You can choose to remain silent, but you can't deny the glory you've achieved. Uncle Jin's eyes flashed with a trace of slyness. He smiled and said, The first male model in the country. Your performance at the Bali Fashion Week shocked the world. You also know famous people like Beckham and Lian. You even designed a card game that's said to be popular all over the world. Let me correct you. Poplar Fruit said, My girlfriend and I designed that game together, and we only designed the first version. It was Blizzard that perfected it and carried it forward. We didn't play a big role in it, as you said. Haha. Uncle Gene waved his hand and said, That's not important. I haven't finished yet. Before I came to you, I contacted Higashiyama University and got to know you better. You're fluent in 13 foreign languages, and you're currently studying for your master's degree. In fact, you've already started to work as a teaching assistant. So, I want to ask you something. Uncle Gene knocked on the table and said with a smile, Poplar Fruit, where can I find another college student as awesome as you? Uncle Gene even cursed. It was obvious that he admired Poplar Fruit very much. Ha ha ha. Poplar Fruit laughed embarrassedly. He scratched his head. How could he praise himself? Poplar Fruit knew that Uncle Gene didn't just want to praise himself. He asked embarrassedly, Uncle Gene, just tell me directly. What do you need me to do? I don't need you to do anything. Uncle Gene smiled and took a sip of coffee. Poplar Fruit was confused by him, and then he said, I just want to inform you. Wait for next year's award. As for other things, our office will communicate with your university. Award? What award? Poplar Fruit was really puzzled. The top 10 college students in the country. Uncle Gene laughed and said, Don't even think about the top 10 outstanding young people. None of them are young people. They're all old men in their 40s or 50s. Poplar Fruit also wanted to win awards. However, what he wanted was not this kind of fame, but professional awards such as the Nobel Prize, the Northern Light Literary Translation Prize, and so on. I know you're absent-minded. But don't be unhappy. Uncle Gene knocked on the table and said with a smile, winning an award is not a big deal for you. Why are you hesitating? Besides, after you win an award, everything you do in the future will be much smoother. Poplar Fruit was stunned for a moment. The long-distance education that he had been working hard on flashed in his mind. However, before he had time to think about it, Poplar Fruit heard noises coming from the children's play area. Among them, there was Kiki's crying, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 807. The children's play area was already quite noisy, and now that the children were crying in unison, it was even noisier. Fortunately, the sound-absorbing material on the second floor was quite good, so it didn't affect the elegant guests in other places. However, Poplar Fruit, who was drinking coffee in the same area, immediately caught the sound of Kiki crying. Kiki rarely cried, and most of the time, when she cried in front of Poplar Fruit, it was just to act coquettishly. Now, her crying immediately affected Poplar Fruit's heart. Uncle Gene was puzzled, and turned his head to look at the direction of the commotion. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past him. When he turned back, Poplar Fruit had already hurriedly pushed away his chair, and rushed to the children's play area. The place was already in a mess. A group of children raised their heads and cried loudly. Several parents hurriedly surrounded their children, comforting them while asking what had happened. Poplar Fruit immediately saw Kiki, who was standing in the middle, holding her little hands and crying. Although there was a small door around the corner, Poplar Fruit was burning with anxiety. He jumped over the fence. He didn't know that his jump was like an agile Ultraman. When he landed, several little boys were stunned and forgot to cry for a moment. Poplar Fruit ran to Kiki's side, squatted down, and hugged Kiki in his arms. He stroked Kiki's little head and asked, "Kiki, what's wrong? Don't cry, Daddy is here." Ooh. Kiki seemed to have found her backbone. She hugged her daddy's neck and cried even louder. What's wrong? Poplar Fruit didn't know what had happened. He could only observe Kiki. He looked at Kiki's face and small arms and legs. He didn't see any injuries, so she probably didn't bump into anything. Then why was she crying like this? Before Poplar Fruit could ask, a fat woman, mixed with a nauseating strong fragrance, walked over with a fat child. The fat child was also crying. One of his hands was held by his mother, but the other hand was pointing at Kiki. Is it her? Is it her? Tianyu, say something. The fat woman shouted with a hoarse voice and pointed her fat finger at Kiki. I say, big sister, why are you shouting here? Can't you talk nicely? Poplar Fruit frowned and used his body to block the saliva that was aimed at Kiki. Talk nicely? The fat woman was aggressive. She rushed over and wanted to grab Poplar Fruit's hair and push it away. But with Poplar Fruit's skills, how could she succeed? Poplar Fruit held Kiki, and with a twist of his feet, his body suddenly disappeared in front of the fat woman's eyes. The fat woman staggered and almost fell. When she steadied herself, Poplar Fruit stood by the side, looked at her coldly and said, Big sister, please respect yourself. If you have something to say, say it. If you don't touch me. The children and parents in the children's play area who were crying just now dispersed, leaving the center where Poplar Fruit and the others were fighting. However, they didn't leave, but stood at the side and watched in confusion. So tall. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. When Poplar Fruit squatted down, the fat woman didn't notice, but now that Poplar Fruit stood up, she found that she had to look up at Poplar Fruit, and her neck had to be raised high. Poplar Fruit's eyes made her feel a little timid. However, in the end, she still lived like a princess. She felt that her mental state was a little embarrassing. The fat woman waved her arms like waves and shouted crazily. You're still asking me why? Isn't it because you, a loser, allowed you to hit my son? She was cursing, and vulgar Cantonese poured out like garbage. Hearing this, many parents frowned and covered their children's ears. Poplar Fruit also covered Kiki's ears and said unhappily, Miss, watch your mouth. The way he addressed her had changed, and Poplar Fruit was already very impatient with her. Hearing the anger in Poplar Fruit's tone, The fat woman also exploded like a barrel of gunpowder. She pointed at Poplar Fruit and cursed, and her words were very unpleasant. It was so annoying that Poplar Fruit really wanted to use tape to seal her mouth, but he only used his arms to cover Kiki's ears, so that she wouldn't be polluted by this garbage. Please don't be unreasonable. Poplar Fruit frowned, and while she was panting he said, "Why do you say that my daughter hit your child?" "God's will. Come here." The fat woman pulled her son over, pointed at his left eye, and said angrily, "Evidence, I'll give you evidence." Poplar Fruit saw that her son's left eye was a little red, not from crying, but as if he had been punched. But was this really done by Kiki? Poplar Fruit knew that although his daughter was more playful and lively, but in reality, this little fellow was very kind-hearted. There were so many brats in Xiong village who fought every day, and Kiki was always the one who ran over to mediate. "God's will, tell me who hit you." The fat woman pulled her son, and her action was very big. Luckily her son was also chubby, otherwise he would have fallen down. "It's her. Mummy, help me hit her." That fat boy called God's will also thickened his neck, and pointed at Kiki as he shouted. He looked at Kiki's eyes with some fear, and even tears seemed to be swirling in his eyes. The fat woman stood there arrogantly, and even rolled up her sleeves. Poplar Fruit glanced at her, and ignored them. He gently lifted Kiki's tear-stained bangs and asked softly, "Kiki, come tell Daddy, why are you crying?" Kiki sobbed and choked with sobs. "Big brother is crying." "Then why is Big Brother crying?" Poplar Fruit understood. Perhaps, like other children, Kiki saw others crying sadly, and she was infected by it. Because Kiki was careless, and accidentally hit Big Brother. Sob sob, sob sob. Kiki cried sadly again. Look. The fat woman was very proud, and she walked up arrogantly, pointing at Kiki's face and saying, "One look and I can tell that you are a vixen now, and a vixen in the future. It must be that our family's God's will is unwilling to play with her, and is still pestering her. I'll beat you to death." Not only did she scold her, she even touched her. Poplar Fruit's face darkened, and he reached out to press on the fat woman's face, and pushed her to the side, and roared like a bolt from the blue, "Get lost! Is it my daughter's fault? This is not conclusive yet." Poplar Fruit said angrily, "But no matter who is right or wrong, the adults should take responsibility for the children. Don't point your pig hand at my daughter." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 808. How strong was Poplar Fruit's aura? Perhaps it was a little lacking in words. He did not even use the murderous aura that he had learned from Xiong Kahu. With just a glare, the fat woman felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. She was so scared that she did not dare to move. At this time, Poplar Fruit finally had a little peace. He comforted Kiki's little hand and asked softly, "Kiki, tell Daddy, why did you accidentally hit your brother's eye just now?" No matter what others said, Poplar Fruit chose to believe Kiki first because he knew that Kiki would not lie to Daddy. If she said that it was an accident, it must be an accident. Kiki was so pure and kind. How could she hurt others? Kiki had been frightened by the fat woman just now. Fortunately, Daddy stepped forward and protected Kiki like an indomitable hero. Only then did her emotions calm down. "Daddy woo." Kiki choked and said, "Brother hit Kiki with a ball. Kiki doesn't want." As if she had stepped on an electric wire, the fat woman jumped up and pointed at Kiki and scolded her again. "You little bitch, don't frame others. How could my son hit people with a ball? My Tiani is the most obedient child in the world." Woo! Kiki was frightened by her and cried again. At this moment, a little boy by the side suddenly pointed at the fat boy called Tiani and shouted, "He's the one who smashed it. He's always bullying people. He's always hitting people. It's so annoying. No one likes to play with him." The little boy who spoke up was at least 6 years old. He was a little older than the fat boy called Tiani. He was not afraid and stood up with his chest puffed out. However, he was immediately pulled back by his mother. "What are you talking about? No one likes to play with my child." The fat woman jumped and shouted. She pointed at the little boy and scolded him again, scolding his mother until her face turned ashen. I said, can you stop talking nonsense? Poplar Fruit pulled her away but did not let her fall. However, this woman was very shameless. She deliberately took a few steps back, and then fell on all fours. She even hit the ground and shouted, "You hit me! You hit me! Come on! Even if you're pretending to fall, can you fall properly? Even the national football team is not as embarrassing as you." Not only did Poplar Fruit see it, the crowd was also speechless. The matter still had to be resolved. Yanghua no longer paid attention to this crazy woman. He carried Chi-Chi and walked to the side of the fat boy. "Kiki." Poplar Fruit wiped his daughter's tears and said gently, "Although you accidentally hit your brother, it's still wrong to hit people. Let's apologize to your brother, okay?" Poplar Fruit wanted Kiki to understand that even if other people were rude and unreasonable, she still had to be a moral person. It was not good to hit people. Knowing one's mistake was a good child. Chi-Chi nodded while choking with sobs. Poplar Fruit squatted down with Kiki in his arms and let her stand in front of the fat boy. The fat boy called Tianny was a little scared by Poplar Fruit and did not dare to move. He could only look at his mother for help. However, his mother was still throwing a tantrum on the ground. "Come, Kiki." Poplar Fruit pointed. Chi-Chi pursed her lips, sniffled, and her beautiful eyelashes were covered with sparkling and translucent dewdrops. She obediently walked up and took her father's hand. She raised her head and said with a sobbing tone, "Brother, I'm sorry. Kiki didn't do it on purpose." "Yes, that's right. Tianny, I know I was wrong. You have to forgive me." Poplar Fruit turned his head and smiled at the fat boy. Actually, she was just a child. How bad could she be? Tianny might have some bad habits from his mother, but after listening to Poplar Fruit's persuasion, he was a little moved. The surrounding parents and children looked at Poplar Fruit with admiration. They felt that he was a gentle father. They were also looking forward to a good ending. After all, in front of an innocent child, everything should be beautiful and not ugly. However, that disgusting voice came again. That fat woman was throwing a tantrum on the ground. In fact, no one was willing to look at her. Those who were able to come to this cafe were all reasonable intellectuals. She saw that throwing a tantrum had no effect, so she climbed up and threw herself in front of Kiki and her son. Saying sorry is useful. Then what do we need the police for? That fat woman shouted with her sharp teeth. "What do you want?" Poplar Fruit originally wanted to keep the peace and let the children have less disputes and more friendship. However, he did not expect this woman to be so shameless and savage. Poplar Fruit pulled Kiki into his protective circle and said to her with a sullen face, "Say it, how much do you want?" Poplar Fruit roughly understood the situation. It might not be his daughter's fault, or the fault might not even be Kiki's fault. However, Kiki might have been forced into a corner. Under conditioned reflex, she used the stupid punch that he had taught her. Although Kiki was not even 2 years old, and was no different from a little kid, her strength was inherited from her father. If she was forced into a corner, it would be very painful to hit someone. Therefore, if the fat woman was not too much, Poplar Fruit did not mind paying some money for her son's treatment. However, he did not expect that Poplar Fruit's words would provoke her. The fat woman jumped up and pointed at Poplar Fruit's face. She scolded, "Who cares about your stinky money? I can go out and wash my feet casually, and I can earn more than you working. Look at this bag, it's LV. Look at this chain, it's made of 24K pure gold." The surrounding crowd could not help but laugh coldly. Poplar Fruit leaned back slightly and avoided her sharp edge. He stared at her in annoyance and asked, "Then what do you want? I've already apologized and I'm willing to fork out the money, but you're still unwilling to forgive me. How can this be resolved? Tell me." If Poplar Fruit could scare her just now, at this moment, because Poplar Fruit could back off, the fat woman mistakenly thought that Poplar Fruit was really afraid of her. The fat woman crossed her arms in front of her chest and laughed coldly. The tip of her foot shook as she stared at Poplar Fruit and said, "What should we do? According to our Wei family's rules, whoever hits our family's Tianny will have to be hit back by our family's Tianny." Wow. The crowd was in an uproar. Everyone stared at this woman with their mouths agape. They did not expect her to be so unreasonable and perverted. The chubby little boy lowered his head under the disdainful gazes of the crowd. He wanted to step back in fear, but his mother grabbed his arm. "Why are you running? Whoever hit you, hit them back fiercely for your mother, so that they won't dare to bully you again." The fat woman put one hand on her waist and scolded her child as she spat saliva, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 809. Haha. In the face of such a shameless fat woman, Poplar Fruit was so angry that he laughed. He stood in front of Kiki like a towering mountain. Looking at his unmoving but gradually tightening sleeves, one could see the agitation in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that it was a woman and a child, Poplar Fruit wouldn't have wanted to talk nonsense with her. He would have knocked her down with a punch and then walked away coolly. "Madam." Poplar Fruit paused and enunciated clearly. He looked down at the fat woman, snorted, and said, "Until now you still think you're right? Oh, the lackey you taught beat up my son. Isn't it me or you who's right?" The fat woman was not afraid at all as she retorted. She had never experienced a life-and-death battle like Poplar Fruit. She had been flattered by the people around her in the city, and had long forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Poplar Fruit said in a deep voice, "You've repeatedly spoken rudely. So many people here have seen it. I've repeatedly backed down. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, I just don't want to argue in front of the child. If we really want to calculate, my child accidentally hit your son because your son threw the ball to her. Forget it. I'm not afraid of you." The fat woman threw a tantrum. She shook her wavy hair and looked at the onlookers, shouting, "Look, his daughter hit my son, and now he's not admitting it. He even said that my son hit his daughter. Is there such a shameless person in the world?" "Yes, it's you." The onlookers didn't say anything and just looked at her with disdain. Sometimes they really felt that talking to such a woman would make them disgusted. Really, Poplar Fruit also felt the same. He was too lazy to argue with the fat woman. And looking at the situation, it was impossible to settle it privately. If she hit Kiki, would Poplar Fruit be willing to settle it privately? Looking back, he happened to see Uncle Gene walking up to them. Poplar Fruit asked, "Uncle Gene, what do you think? Why don't we just call the police and let the police solve it? If the police can't solve it, we'll let the court judge it." Poplar Fruit was furious. He no longer had the patience to reason with this unreasonable fat woman. If they weren't in the uncle's shop, Poplar Fruit would have done so long ago. That was why he asked Uncle Gene out of politeness. Uncle Gene smiled and waved his hand. "No need. This matter is easy to solve." Before he could finish, the fat woman jumped out and scolded, "If you want to find the police, then go find the police. You think I'm afraid of you? Let me tell you, our old way also knows quite a few police officers. When the time comes, you'll still be in big trouble." Uncle Gene coldly glanced at the fat woman and waved his hand. A waiter turned on the LCD TV on the side wall that was playing advertisements. The TV showed a video surveillance interface. Someone exclaimed, "Wasn't this the video of the children's play area?" It turned out that the uncle didn't show up, not because he didn't want to, but because he asked the waiter to take him to the surveillance room. As the boss, it was easy for him to find the surveillance video just now. "I have the whole process of what happened just now. Are you sure you want to see it?" Uncle Gene held the remote control and pointed at the fat woman. "Let's see it. I'm not afraid of you." The fat woman shouted. She was already a little guilty, but she still insisted on shouting. In the end, she even added, "It must be this little bitch who hit my son." "Then let's watch the video." Uncle Gene smiled faintly and clicked on the video. The video was changed to a very early time. At that time, Kiki had just walked into the play area and was happily greeting the other children, wanting to play with them. Not long after, the little fat boy was seen being carried in by his mother. As soon as he came in, he jumped up and down like Sun Wukong, causing chaos in the play area. "What's wrong with this? Children just like to play around," the fat woman mumbled. After a while, it was not just chaos. The children's play area could be said to be in chaos. The little fat boy took out a small plastic ball from the small pool and chased the other children around to throw it. The children here were more docile. When they saw that they were not as big as him, they would avoid him. At this time, the fat woman's figure appeared in the video. She stood outside the fence and seemed to be applauding for her child. Your own child is beating people and you're still complaining. A male parent couldn't help but scold. His son was also one of the children being chased. Didn't he not hit? The fat woman turned her head and scolded. It's only counted if he hit, isn't it? The male parent rolled up his sleeves and said angrily. It looked like he was going to start a fight at any moment. This little ball, will it hurt if you hit it? The fat woman shouted fearlessly. It's none of your business. Get lost and mind your own business. F*CKU. The male parent was enraged. If it weren't for his wife holding him back, he would have rushed over to beat the woman up. Don't quarrel, let's continue watching. Uncle Jin's voice interrupted and attracted everyone's attention back to the screen. They saw that the little fat boy was tired from chasing. He took 2 breaths and went back to the pool to reload the cannonball and rushed back. This time, he purposely caused trouble for my daughter, causing a group of my daughter's children to scream and run away. The little fat boy seemed to be very proud. He stood there laughing and throwing the balls around. Everyone saw that on the screen. The super cute Kiki bravely walked over and seemed to be persuading him. The little fat boy shouted something at Kiki and turned around to leave. That's it. Everyone had doubts in their hearts. They thought that things shouldn't have ended like this. In the end, the situation immediately took a turn for the worse. Because the little fat boy had run out of small balls in his hands, he ran to the small pond and took a few more before rushing over and throwing them at Chi-Chi. Huff huff. Poplar Fruit saw that his daughter was being bullied. His eyes turned red and he panted like a cow. He was already filled with anger. They could see that Kiki was being hit by the little fat boy's balls. She used her left arm to block her face and waved her right arm to balance her body to avoid him. The little fat boy seemed to be getting more and more excited. He even ran in front of Kiki and threw the ball at her head. Looking at the extent of his arm waving, it was very strong. Just when the ball was about to hit Chi-Chi, Chi-Chi's right hand suddenly swung out from under her armpit, as if it was a conditioned reflex. Everyone imagined that the ball had smashed into the little fat boy's left eye socket with a bang sound. 1 punch KO. I created a book friend group and pinned it at the top of the book review section. There have been book friends who requested this for a long time, but I never had the time. If you're interested, you can go and take a look. Xiao Han can't guarantee that he will appear often. Chapter 8:10. When they saw that Chi-Chi had seemingly only blocked the attack once before knocking down the little fat boy, who had been going around bullying people to the ground, the onlookers felt as if they had drunk a cup of cold and refreshing Sprite on a hot summer day. This kind of refreshing feeling seeped into their hearts. Poplar Fruit's mouth twitched. He was angry that Kiki was being bullied by the little boy, but now he couldn't help but want to laugh. Others didn't see it and thought that the little fat boy accidentally bumped into Kiki's face, but Poplar Fruit saw it clearly. Although it was a conditioned reflex, the little girl did use the bimbin punch that he taught her. The action that looked like a hook actually had a little bit of spinning force. Plus, Kiki was very strong, so it would be very painful if she hit someone. Poplar Fruit looked down at Kiki, who was standing behind him timidly, holding his leg. Kiki also looked up at her father with a wronged and timid expression. She remembered that when her father taught her bimbin punch, he repeatedly told her not to bully other children just because she was good at kung fu. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but laugh. He squatted down and gently patted Kiki's little head to comfort the nervous little girl. How is it? After watching the video, Uncle Jin waved his hand and said to the fat woman, "What do you have to say? Who are you?" The fat woman's face turned white and red. She still straightened her neck and scolded, "I'm arguing with him. Why do you care so much? My wife is the owner of this store. Why can't I care about you?" Uncle Jin laughed and said, "After watching this video, you still won't admit that it was your child who started it." "That's right. My daughter only blocked it for a bit, but your fat boy fell with a touch. Are you trying to blackmail me? Some people couldn't stand it anymore and scolded. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? The fat woman put her hands on her waist and scolded. My son is playing with you because he thinks highly of you. You hit my son. I'm telling you, this is not over. Poplar Fruit laughed and took out his phone and said, Okay, then we'll get the police and the judge to judge for us. Even if they went to court, Poplar Fruit wasn't afraid. He was in the right. With this video, no one could frame his daughter. Besides, Poplar Fruit really didn't want to settle this in private with the fat woman. Let the law be the judge. It's not like he couldn't afford to hire a lawyer. At this point, the fat woman felt guilty. She knew that the video was harmful to her. She shouted, Don't be arrogant. My old way, is from the Education Bureau of Education. Be careful, I'll get someone to kill you and revoke your daughter's school status. Don't even think about going to kindergarten or school in Yangcheng. Educations? Poplar Fruit laughed silently and looked at Uncle Jean, who was the deputy director of the Education Bureau of Guangdong Province. Uncle Jean also looked at Poplar Fruit helplessly. He felt that he had lost a lot of face. Today he caused such an unpleasant incident in his store, and even involved a small official from the Education Bureau. Who was he? Why was his wife so arrogant? Tell me, is it Wei Guozhong or Wei Changxing? Uncle Jean looked at her coldly and said, Tell me the name. I'll go back and investigate. I'll see if he was corrupt or bribed to buy you such a good bag and expensive gold chain. You. What do you think my old Wei's name is? The fat woman wasn't stupid. When she heard Uncle Jin's words and felt the power of an official, her voice suddenly lowered. Who are you? You don't need to know who I am. Uncle Jean laughed and said, It's okay if you don't tell me. If you continue to be so arrogant, I don't mind asking the Commission for Discipline Inspection to track down this video and investigate your old way. Okay. Hearing Uncle Jin's domineering words and seeing that the fat woman's momentum was completely suppressed, the onlookers felt as if they had breathed out a sigh of relief and cheered loudly. I'm telling you, this isn't over. The fat woman really flinched this time. She angrily pointed at Uncle Jean and Poplar Fruit and threw out some harsh words to save her face. Then, she pulled her fat son away from the crowd and fled. The onlookers applauded one after another, as if they had defeated a boss. Uncle Jean stretched out his hands and pressed them down. He smiled and said, Everyone, I'm really sorry for letting you see such a farce. In the future, my store will definitely strengthen the management in this area and let everyone enjoy their shopping. We will blacklist people like her and won't let her come here and annoy everyone again. Today, I've disturbed everyone's mood. As an apology, my store will give everyone a free cup of coffee and dessert. I hope you can forgive me. Uncle Jin's generosity and sincerity were exchanged for good-natured laughter. The coffee shop finally returned to its usual calm. Of course, Uncle Jean didn't forget Poplar Fruit. He pulled Poplar Fruit and Kiki to a booth and personally ran to the back to bring drinks and desserts for Kiki. Uncle Jean, you don't have to do this. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. I know it's not your fault. We're just unlucky to have met such a person. I'm not apologizing to you. Uncle Jean glared at Poplar Fruit and laughed. I'm trying to help Kiki get over the shock. Our little fairy must have been frightened just now, right? She must be very hungry after crying for so long. Kiki raised her red and swollen big eyes under her father's signal, loosened her little mouth that was biting the straw, and said with her pleasant nasal voice, Thank you, Uncle. Ha, good girl. Uncle Jean praised. Slowly, Uncle Jean and Poplar Fruit returned to the topic that they hadn't finished talking about before. He told Poplar Fruit that this year, the Education Circle of Guangdong Province wanted to set up a banner. You have the temperament of an idol, the qualities that students and scholars should have, and the results that no other student in the country can achieve. Uncle Jean smiled and said, You have won the award, which is equivalent to being the spokesperson of our Guangdong Province's education field. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile, Can I say no? I've been pushed beyond my ability by you. Don't always have this expression. Uncle Jean laughed and said, I'm not asking you to do anything bad. I'm asking you to use your own experience to inspire other students, even middle school and primary school students. Let them study hard and develop in an all-round way. Isn't that good? Poplar Fruit shrugged and said with a smile, I can't bear the responsibility of being an example. After all, people's development is different. I can only say that since you think highly of me, Poplar Fruit, I will continue to work hard. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 8:11. On the way back, it started to rain in Yangcheng. When they got out of the car, it was already raining heavily. The rain was too heavy. This was the first heavy rain of autumn. It was probably going to bring the coldness of winter to Yangcheng. Poplar Fruit reminded himself in his heart to give Kiki more clothes. Because the car was parked in the school, the only downside of the teacher's apartment was that they couldn't buy a parking space. After the new house was handed over next year, Yonghua could directly drive it home. Yonghua could only use the raincoat in the car to cover Chi-Chi layer by layer, only revealing half of her face. Kiki blinked her eyes and smiled. She looked like a little elf hiding in a rock. Poplar Fruit gently pinched her nose and smiled. Get ready, it's time to charge. In the pitch-black rain, the door of a Land Rover was opened, and a tall boy rushed out with an umbrella. Poplar Fruit held the umbrella with one hand and hugged Kiki tightly with the other. In the end, he could only use his but to close the car door. The door was locked with an electronic lock. Yonghua hugged Chi-Chi and dashed madly in the heavy rain, running in the direction of home. Kiki. Chi-Chi wasn't afraid in the slightest. She was firmly held in her father's arms. Her body was covered by a raincoat, her head was covered by an umbrella, and her father's warm body was protecting her. It was as if she was playing a game that wasn't dangerous at all, and she enjoyed the excitement and joy of moving through the rain to her heart's content. Along the way, Poplar Fruit rushed back to the apartment accompanied by the wind and rain and Kiki's shouts. Kiki was of course safe and sound, but Poplar Fruit was soaked from the chest down. Although it was partly because Poplar Fruit ran too fast and the umbrella was too small, this was not a typhoon. It was even worse than a typhoon. Back home, Yonghua's body was still dripping with water. Goldie brought a pair of shoes over with a clattering sound. Poplar Fruit was very touched at first, but when he looked down he saw Kiki's little slippers. Then this fellow stood there with its tongue out and tail wagging. It had no intention of taking the male owner's shoes. I really raised you for nothing. Yonghua kicked Jinzi lightly before pulling out her slippers. Then, she walked towards the bathroom with water stains on her face. After taking off the raincoat, Kiki grabbed Goldie's ears and wanted to ride on its back. Goldie played with her. When Poplar Fruit changed into dry clothes and came out, he saw Kiki standing on the sofa with a piece of cloth in her hand. Papa, Kiki will wipe your hair. Kiki jumped on the sofa and shouted happily. Poplar Fruit was really touched. This was the first time that Kiki took the initiative to wipe her father's hair. However, Poplar Fruit guessed that she must have seen her father wiping Sister Bebe's hair every night recently. She was very fond of it, so she deliberately imitated it. Okay, Kiki, wait. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. He went to the bathroom first, and then walked back to Kiki's side. He quietly changed the cloth in Kiki's hand into a clean towel. Papa had head. Kiki grabbed the towel with both hands and waved it up and down, indicating that her father should lower his head a little. Compared to the little Kiki, Poplar Fruit was much taller than her. Even if he sat on the sofa, Kiki could not reach him if she stood and raised her hand. Poplar Fruit smiled and crawled down with a push-up posture. Kiki happily stepped on the sofa and approached her father. She grabbed the towel with both hands and rubbed it on her father's hair. Because Poplar Fruit lowered his head, he could only see Kiki's white and red little feet. However, he could clearly feel that Kiki was not wiping his hair. She was wiping his scalp. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit's hair was short and wet. Otherwise, she would have rubbed off a few strands of his hair. Although he could bear it, Poplar Fruit felt that he could not help the evildoer. He stood up and taught Kiki how to wipe her hair, how to flatten the towel, how to control it, and how to use force. Anyway, the little girl was in high spirits while wiping her father's hair. She learned quickly, which was very good. When Kiki dried her hair, Poplar Fruit suddenly patted his forehead and thought of something. Fong Bebe did not bring an umbrella when she went to class today. This time, Kiki helped her father wipe his hair in vain. Calculating the time, Fong Bebe's class was about to end. He got up from the sofa and rubbed Kiki's little head. He said with a smile, "Thank you, Kiki. Papa is very happy. But Papa is going out to pick up Bebe's sister. Kiki, can you stay at home by yourself?" Poplar Fruit looked at Kiki and asked. No, Kiki does not want to leave Papa. Kiki rushed up and hugged her father's waist. Chi-Chi was quite scared when she heard the continuous rumbling of thunder outside. No, it's not safe for Papa to take you out. It's raining so heavily, Poplar Fruit persuaded. As long as Kiki is obedient at home, Papa will come back after a while. Moreover, doesn't Kiki have Goldie at home to accompany her? Hearing its master call its name, Goldie turned over and got up from the ground. It raised its head and looked at its two masters in confusion. Kiki thought about it awkwardly. She was still a little conflicted. If Papa doesn't go, Bebe's sister will also get wet. Kiki can continue to study how to dry hair at home. Then when Bebe's sister comes back, Kiki can also help Bebe's sister to dry hair. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Okay. Then Papa has to come back soon. Kiki is so scared. Kiki pulled her father's hand and said with a pout. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and kissed Kiki's forehead. He said with a smile, Papa promises to come back soon. So after sending a message to Fong Bebe, Poplar Fruit put on his raincoat and rushed into the rain. When he ran to Fong Bebe's teaching building, the rain didn't seem to stop. There were many people standing on the first floor of the building. Most of them were standing there with their bicycles. They didn't bring umbrellas, so they could only sigh. Fong Bebe also finished her class. She stood under the eaves with 2 books in her arms. However, because Poplar Fruit was wearing a raincoat, Fong Bebe didn't recognize him until he came to her side. Uncle, Fong Bebe sweetly pulled Poplar Fruit's hand that was a little cold because of the rain and said, Baby, come put on the raincoat. Let's go back and talk. Poplar Fruit smiled and took off the hood of his raincoat. He took out the raincoat that was still warm from his arms and put it on Fong Bebe in front of everyone's envious eyes. In this weather, the raincoat was still not enough. It couldn't cover the face, and the wind would blow the rainwater into the neck. Poplar Fruit put one hand on Fong Bebe's shoulder and held the umbrella with the other hand. The two of them snuggled into the rain. This scene was really torturous for single people. Poplar Fruit didn't know that after he left, the heartbroken single men of the mathematics and engineering department howled and rushed into the rain with their bicycles. Let the storm come more fiercely. Well, Xiao Han had experienced this feeling. Of course, Xiao Han was a sad child who rushed into the rain with his bicycle. Chapter 8:12. What happened in the coffee shop didn't leave any shadow in Kiki's heart, because she always had her father standing by her side. She could feel a sense of security that made her feel at ease. Poplar Fruit later discussed with Fong Bebe, and didn't give Kiki any ideological education about this matter. Although sometimes it was good to let Kiki reflect on a bad thing and understand the reason, the fat woman scolded a lot of vulgarities that day. Poplar Fruit hoped that Kiki wouldn't think of this matter again, and let it slowly fade away with time. After returning to school, Poplar Fruit and Fong Bebe's lives gradually returned to normal. Fong Bebe continued to attend classes. She was only a sophomore this year. She began to have more professional classes in her sophomore year, and she was usually very busy. Of course, Fong Bebe also joined the multidimensional volunteer teaching society that she had always been thinking about. When she didn't have classes, she received training from her former roommate, Lin Xingshan. At night, she would hold a small notebook and consult Poplar Fruit about her experience, waiting for an opportunity to teach the children of Xiong Family Village. Speaking of multidimensional, Fat Dragon and Kai Simin had now withdrawn from the mountain. Fat Dragon returned home and gathered his hacker brothers on the internet to solve problems day and night. They were doing the final test of the network operating system that Poplar Fruit had mentioned before. Poplar Fruit and Fat Dragon both attached great importance to this system. Not only did they spend money to apply for a patent from the beginning of the design, but Poplar Fruit also often participated in the testing to fill a large number of question banks and knowledge trees for the system. The network operating system should be available in early November. Poplar Fruit was confident that with this operating system, the children's grades would definitely be on a higher level. Xiong Jiwu and Yi Nuzheng didn't need to work hard every day to scan the children's homework and send it back. Kai Simin returned to Beijing. He was no longer a lone commander. With Zheng Yujie's financial support, Kai Simin recruited a few like-minded people to work on the hardware together. Other than computer hardware, Poplar Fruit also gave him a research direction. That was how to improve the teacher's teaching experience. Poplar Fruit felt that the current classes were a little too rigid. This was because the teacher had to pay attention to the children's every move on the screen to see if any of them were distracted. On the other hand, the teacher had to pay attention to the content of the children's PowerPoint presentation on the computer. On the other hand, the teacher had to write on the blackboard. Even Poplar Fruit had tried it before. He was often flustered, and it took up too much of his teacher's time and spirit. Besides, if the teacher wrote on the blackboard, the children would see it blurry when the camera projected it over. Maybe we can use a writing board instead. See if you can get a writing board for our teacher's class. It's a little like a smaller version of the blackboard. The teacher can use a magnetic pen or something to scribble on it. When it reaches the children's side, it can be displayed on the computer or on the big screen. Poplar Fruit's request wasn't that hard to fulfill. Kai Simin went back and bought a writing board. Using the ready-made drawing software, it could indeed be reflected. However, the effect was still a little rough, and the experience of using the writing board wasn't very good. Therefore, they needed to continue to tackle these problems. Poplar Fruit's return was very helpful to the entire multidimensional teaching. Although Poplar Fruit wasn't as good as Wang Yuba in terms of management and personnel, Poplar Fruit's value wasn't reflected in management. He was more like a human signboard. Poplar Fruit, who had been popular for a while, was a legendary existence in the eyes of many students in Higashiyama University. With Poplar Fruit's help in spreading the word, more people joined the multidimensional club, including many students with special talents. They gradually enriched the multidimensional teaching model. In addition, Poplar Fruit had a good relationship with the school's upper management. Previously, it was only because Poplar Fruit was the direct disciple of the Outer Court's dean, Chen Zhongdai. It was also because of his representative speech at the freshmen's admission ceremony that he had attracted the attention of the management. Later, with Uncle Jin's communication with the education department, the school truly began to pay attention to Poplar Fruit, who was different from the rest. This also allowed Poplar Fruit to gain many benefits. What made Poplar Fruit and the rest ecstatic was that with Poplar Fruit's hard work, the multidimensional club had obtained special approval from the school. As long as they brought the club's official seal to apply for the multidimensional teaching, the teaching building management would handle it on the spot and help them arrange for empty classrooms that didn't have regular classes. Furthermore, it didn't matter the number. One had to know that if a school club wanted to apply for an empty classroom to hold an event, it would be extremely troublesome. They had to first obtain approval from their own school's student affairs office, then apply for approval from a higher school's student affairs office, and finally apply to the teaching building management office a week in advance. If the activities were more intensive, they would even have to queue up. The special privileges that Poplar Fruit and the other clubs had obtained were too useful. Furthermore, because they taught the children during the day, they didn't need to fight for space with other clubs. Therefore, the many empty classrooms during the day could be used by them. On the same day, Poplar Fruit placed an order with Kai Simin in Beijing to purchase a few more sets of equipment and send them to Yangcheng. Normally, the equipment could be stored in the Student Activity Center's room. Poplar Fruit planned to get someone to renovate the room and increase the security level. Then when they went to teach the children, they could sign and take them out. Wang Yuba was still relatively calm. He wasn't in a hurry to split everyone into 6 groups to teach the children of the 6 grades. Although the number of students had increased very quickly, the majority of the students still needed to be trained before they could walk up to the lectern to teach the children. However, it was still possible to split them into two groups. Wang Yuba let Lin Xingshan lead one group, while Song Qing led the other. Song Qing was responsible for the children of the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades, who had a faster learning speed, while Lin Xingshan was mainly responsible for laying the foundations for the children of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades. Overall, Poplar Fruit felt that whether it was the multidimensional teaching or the children of the Xiong family village, they were all gradually walking on the path to success. This was especially so when Poplar Fruit was teaching the children. On the 6 screens, he saw that the eyes of the children were no longer as confused as before. Instead, they were filled with longing for the future and expectations of a better life. Seeing these cute eyes, Poplar Fruit felt very happy. Sometimes, doing good deeds didn't have to bring about tangible benefits. It was actually a kind of selfless dedication. If you didn't pursue rewards or fame, you would be happier. Poplar Fruit truly felt that the sense of accomplishment he felt at this moment was deeper than when he stood on the Bali runway and received the attention of thousands of people. Next week, after returning from Mango Station, Poplar Fruit would go to the stray dog rescue station to do volunteer work with Fong Bebe and Kiki. Pretty good. Poplar Fruit clenched his fists and smiled. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 8:13. Poplar Fruit thought that he could keep a low profile until the day he ran to participate in the Fast Lane dungeon. However, plans could never keep up with changes. On the day Poplar Fruit packed his luggage, a piece of news from the mainstream media once again ignited public opinion on the internet. Mo Yan, the winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, admitted that Yang Guo was his personal translator. The news that was reposted by major media listed all the information about Poplar Fruit on the internet after he became famous. Of course, many online media also added in the news, such as Monaco Princess's rumored boyfriend. This made Poplar Fruit feel awkward. He had to appease Fong Bebe, who was a little jealous. What was the truth? Later, Poplar Fruit asked Old Master Mo, and found out that everything originated from the more than 50 translations by Poplar Fruit. Peng Yu brought his team to negotiate with Amazon in the United States for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, he received the best promise from Amazon. Amazon promised that for the next 3 years, they would recommend a new book for New Translation Road publishing firm every month. And this did not include the Old Master's book. New Translation Road was a name that Zheng Yujie asked her father, Zheng Taiming, for help. New Translation Road was a transformation of the Silk Road, which implied that the publishing house would spread Chinese culture abroad, just like the Silk Road in the past. New, of course, represented a new era and a new atmosphere. That was not important. What was important was that before Peng Yu and the others' plane landed, Amazon immediately promoted the translation of this year's Nobel Prize winner Mo Yan's works in more than 10 languages according to the results of their discussion. Speed was crucial in war. Even though New Translation Road was still nervously and overtime typesetting and proofreading, striving for flawlessness and perfection, Amazon still sounded the horn of promotion early. It did not matter if there were no books. Now, they were setting up a countdown to firmly attract everyone's attention to them. Amazon even made pre-orders. Once the books were online, they would immediately sell them. Only an online retailer like Amazon, which had tentacles all over the world, could afford such a large-scale marketing campaign. It was targeted to more than 20 countries. Only Amazon was able to attract everyone's attention through its massive publicity, even though no one knew where the New Translation Road publishing house came from. And even though no one knew where Lian Yang, the translator, came from, the pre-orders had exceeded 200,000 copies in just 2 days. 200,000 was not a lot. Even if it was split evenly among the 50 translations, it would only sell about 4,000 copies per book. If it was compared to other bestsellers, it would definitely be a flop. However, Amazon was still very confident. On the one hand, they knew that the novel of this year's Kono Prize winner had received good reviews in Western countries, and the sales were also very good. Now that he had won the Nobel Prize, they had more confidence in Mo Yan's work. On the other hand, they had also asked someone to read the translation that Peng Yu had brought over. The quality of the translation was indeed top-notch. Although it was not selling well at first, they believed that it would definitely sell well. It was a little far-fetched, but Amazon's big move not only attracted the attention of many traditional and non-traditional booksellers, but also attracted the attention of the media. The domestic media paid close attention to all the news related to Mo Yan. When they saw so many translations of Mo Yan's works on Amazon, they were all stunned. That was why they ran to Mo Yan and asked him about it. One of them was from the national television station. I couldn't reject it, so I had to do an hour-long interview with them. The old man said to Poplar Fruit helplessly. They asked me if I had authorized it. They said that if I hadn't, the country could sue you for infringement. The old man smiled and said, "What could I say? I could only say that I had authorized it. Otherwise, you would be in big trouble." All right. They asked about me later, right? Poplar Fruit sighed and complained to the teacher. These media outlets are so gossipy. That's not it. The old man laughed and said, I took the initiative to say that. Ha. Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. The old man smiled and said, They asked me if it was thoughtless to find a new publishing house in the country. I said no. I said that this publishing house was very thoughtful and capable. Then the old man said to the other party excitedly, Did you think that Lian Yang came from a studio or a team? The other party nodded honestly. Anyone who saw more than 50 translations under the same name would probably think that the name belonged to a studio or a team of many people. The old man proudly sold out Poplar Fruit. Haha, you guessed wrong. To tell you the truth, Lian Yang is actually just one person, a very capable translator. But how is that possible? He translated more than 50 books alone? And he even translated them in more than 10 languages? The reporter looked at the old man in disbelief. Why would I lie to you? He has a name and a surname. Leon is just his English name. His Chinese name is Poplar Fruit. The old man laughed and said, He is the youngest translator I have ever seen. He knows 13 foreign languages. Moreover, among the works that I sent for the selection, several of them, including Life and Death, Fatigue and Frog, were translated into Swedish by him. Poplar Fruit? A lot of questions popped up in the reporter's mind. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Right. The old man continued to reveal. You should know that he has a translated work. The biography of Steve Jobs, which was very popular last year, was translated by him. Then, isn't he the popular supermodel in Bali recently? The reporter finally made the connection between Poplar Fruit and Poplar Fruit. He was so surprised that his jaw almost dropped. Hey, don't always talk about supermodel. Poplar Fruit should be developing in the academic field. He is such a good kid. You always want to associate him with the entertainment industry, the old man said unhappily. Fortunately, the reporters from the national television station were kind enough to help hide this sentence in the interview. Otherwise, the old man would definitely cause dissatisfaction in the entertainment industry. To tell you the truth, he is now my student, the old man said proudly. I have high hopes for him. There was no need to describe what happened after that. The old man successfully sold Poplar Fruit out. Then Poplar Fruit became the focus of the whole country once again. Did I reveal too much? The old man laughed embarrassedly when he was talking to Poplar Fruit on the phone. I think that people should be frank, especially people like us who are in the academic field. We should say whatever is on our mind. Don't you think so? Yes. Yes. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and was unable to refute. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 8:14. Because Poplar Fruit suddenly released a piece of news that made people look at him in a new light, Mango Station also took the opportunity to announce that Poplar Fruit would be participating in the Express edition. This was a rare publicity opportunity. After all, after becoming famous, Poplar Fruit had never accepted an interview from the domestic media, nor had he appeared in the public eye, i.e., participated in commercial activities. As long as one followed Poplar Fruit, there was no one who didn't want him to appear on a variety show so that people could see the glory of China's #1 male model up close. When Mango Station's news came out, It was as if people had been injected with chicken blood. They left comments under Mango Station, asking Mango Station to broadcast Poplar Fruit's episode as soon as possible after the recording was completed. Many Kiki's fans also asked Mango Station to invite Kiki to appear on screen at the same time. Of course, Poplar Fruit wasn't aware of all this. He had already flown to the provincial capital of Nanhu with Kiki, and checked into the hotel that Mango Station had arranged for him. At this time, in a luxurious villa in Beijing, there was a scene of things being smashed again. Lisa Chow felt that he was really furious. In the past week, he had his eyes on a female celebrity who had drifted from Beijing. That female celebrity wasn't very popular, but she wasn't young. She was in her 30s and was much older than Lisa Chow, but her figure and appearance were excellent. Perhaps it was because of her age, but Lisa Chow was infatuated when he saw this female celebrity. The hidden sister complex in his heart was aroused. In order to hook up with this female celebrity, Lisa Chow spent a lot of effort. In the past week, he treated her to a meal, gave her a platinum necklace, and promised to help her get a supporting role in a movie before he tricked her into sleeping with him. However, before he could continue to savor the mature charm of the female celebrity, Lisa Chow saw the news that Poplar Fruit was going to appear on Mango Station. Lisa Chow couldn't bear to see his love rival doing well. In a fit of anger, he smashed his phone into 2 pieces. After switching to a new phone, Lisa Chow threw the female celebrity upstairs and called his lackey over. F***CKU. I told you to investigate that Poplar Fruit. Why haven't you found anything yet? Lisa Chow picked up a pillow and threw it at him. The lackey also felt wronged. He cried and said, "Brother Chow, I really investigated it. I found out that he came back 5 days ago." "Then why didn't you tell me?" Lisa Chow scolded him. "I told you." The lackey acted like a little wife and said pitifully, "Last time, I came to report to you. After I told you, you told me to stop bothering me." Lisa Chow remembered. At that time, this guy had come to find him. He was thinking about what gift to give the celebrity sister in order to invite her out for a meal. Then he didn't listen to a single word of this guy's report. He was so interested that he waved his hand and let the lackey leave. F***CK. Lisa Chow grabbed the lackey's collar and scolded. "I didn't listen. Don't you know how to F***King report it again? I've raised you for so many years. What the F***CK did I feed you?" Lisa Chow refused to admit his mistake. The lackey cried and didn't dare to talk back. He let him scold and beat him until Lisa Chow was tired. "Tell me, what's the result of your investigation?" Lisa Chow leaned back on the sofa and asked while panting. The lackey looked at him carefully and said, "I found that Poplar Fruit doesn't seem to be affected. He's always been fine with his girlfriend. Then that Pai Din one is a jerk. Brother Chow, I suspect that he's just fooling around with you. He's been picking up girls recently. He doesn't even care about your instructions." F***CK. What kind of people did Jiangnan young Master Ling introduce? Lisa Chow became angry again after hearing this. He grabbed the teacup on the coffee table and threw it. It hit the stairs next to him, making a crisp sound. Lisa Chow was still holding a grudge against Poplar Fruit for ruining his and Zheng Yujie's plans. He really wanted to find someone to deal with Poplar Fruit, but he knew that it was useless to send assassins abroad, let alone within the country. He could only find another way. However, this Pai Din one was really hateful. He kept ruining his plans. The more Li Zhe thought about it, the more frustrated he became. His hand trembled and he slapped the lackey. The lackey cried and covered his cheek as he looked at Lisa Chow. "Brother Chow, why did you hit me if you're angry at Pai Din one?" "I hit you because I wanted to." "Why? Are you unhappy?" Lisa Chow slapped him again. This time, the lackey didn't dare to speak carelessly. This master was temperamental and hard to serve. It was better to follow his wishes and leave as soon as possible. "No. This Pai Din one is really infuriating." Lisa Chow was still very annoyed. He pointed at the lackey and said, "You inform young Master Ling F***CK, if he doesn't help me beat this Pai Din one half to death, he can forget about getting that piece of land back." "Yes, yes." The lackey took out a notebook and pretended to take notes. Also, Lisa Chow's face was ferocious. He gritted his teeth and said, "Doesn't he like that Duan person? Humph, organize the photos we took of him in Bali and send them to that Duan person. I don't believe that you'll be able to leave with a beauty so easily. Eat sh*t. I understand." The lackey smiled and said, "Isn't that young Master Ling brothers with Pai Din one? Let young Master Ling send this information over, and make it impossible for them to be brothers." Not bad, not bad. There's an improvement. Li Zichao felt happy just thinking about it. He laughed and patted the lackey's shoulder as he said this. "Then, Brother Chow, what about poplar fruit?" "What about poplar fruit?" the lackey asked. It would have been fine if poplar fruit had not been mentioned. Once poplar fruit was mentioned, Li Zichao felt depressed. He felt that poplar fruit was a flawless egg that he could not find a place to eat. He had set up so many traps for poplar fruit before, but none of them worked. Just like in Bali, his schemes were all forcefully crushed by poplar fruit's strength. Keep an eye on him. If there's anything you can do to add fuel to the fire, just do your best to slander him. Li Zichao waved his hand dejectedly and said, "First, get rid of Pai Din 1. Damn, just thinking about him makes me unhappy." The lackey received the instructions and quickly left the villa. Being close to a king is like being close to a tiger. He felt that this old saying was right. Who knew when Li Zichao would be unhappy and find someone to bury him? So when he left, there was a gust of wind under his feet. Li Zichao felt a little stifled. There was an evil fire in his heart that could not be vented. "Luckily, I have a celebrity sister." Li Zichao smiled evilly. He took out a bottle from his trouser pocket and poured out a small blue pill. He drank it with water, then anxiously jumped over the place where the teacup was broken and ran upstairs, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 8:15. Dong Dong Dong. Poplar Fruit had just given Kiki a bath and was about to play a jigsaw puzzle with her when he heard a knock on the hotel door. When he opened the door, there were 5 people standing outside the door. Poplar Fruit was very familiar with them. Teacher He, Sister Na, Vega, Fatty Haitao, and the beautiful Wu Xian. The 5 hosts of the Fast Lane dungeon were all here. "Oh, why are you here?" Poplar Fruit quickly bent over and shook hands with Teacher He and the others. He smiled and said, "Isn't the show starting tomorrow? Please come in. It's the habit of our program group to visit our guests a day in advance." Poplar Fruit don't mind. Teacher He laughed. "How could that be?" Poplar Fruit asked everyone to come in. "Poplar Fruit, you're so tall," Sister Na exclaimed. She pulled Fatty Haitao over. "Haitao is shorter than you by a head." Fatty Haitao was actually the tallest of the 5 people. Although he was fat, he was actually 1.8 meters tall. However, he was wearing high-top sneakers and was not as tall as Poplar Fruit, who was only wearing flat slippers. What a cute little girl. Wu Xian was a little embarrassed to talk to Poplar Fruit. After greeting them, she followed the other 4 people. However, when she came in, she was attracted by Kiki, who was sitting on the bed next to them. She happily jumped on her. Oh, it was Chi-Chi's first time seeing her, so she was a little scared. The little fellow cried out and slipped down from the other side of the bed. She passed through the crowd and rushed to her father's side. She hugged her father's calf and looked at the crowd timidly. "Kiki, don't be afraid. Auntie wants to play with you." Poplar Fruit laughed. "This is Auntie Wu Xian." Sister Na was also a mother. She got married last year and now has no resistance to children. Especially Kiki, who was so cute. She was wearing a little nightgown and her hair was loose. She looked like a miniature version of a fairy. She and Wu Xian teased Kiki. "Poplar Fruit, I remember you're still single, right?" Vega asked curiously, wanting to get closer to Poplar Fruit. Scratching his head, Poplar Fruit smiled. "Not really. I have a girlfriend right now." "Yeah, I'm a little curious." Wei Gao asked in a low voice. "What about Kiki's mother? If it's inconvenient, it's fine if you don't tell me." Teacher He was worried that Poplar Fruit would be angry. He pulled Wei Jia and said with a smile, "Hey, this is the first time we meet, and you ask such a private question. Poplar Fruit, don't pay attention to him." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, It's not a big deal. Kiki's mother died while giving birth to her. Besides, Kiki also knows about it. I don't intend to hide it from her. Wei Jia opened his mouth and said apologetically, I'm sorry, Poplar Fruit. I mentioned something that hurt you. It's okay. It's been almost 2 years. Poplar Fruit smiled. Teacher, he changed the topic because the atmosphere was a little heavy. He smiled and said, Poplar Fruit, I heard that this is your first time on a variety show? Yeah. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I've only seen you guys on TV before. Oh right, Teacher he, Brother Jia, Brother Tao, Sister Na, Sister Xian, you guys have to give me an autograph later. My girlfriend likes you guys a lot. No problem. Teacher he smiled and said, Do you want more? Let me tell you a secret. There's a girl group star coming tomorrow. She's been working hard in Korea and has gained a lot of popularity. FX. S. Vittoria? Poplar Fruit didn't wait for Teacher he to finish and asked in surprise. This time, it was Teacher he's turn to be surprised. He opened his mouth wide and held Wei Jia. He held his chin exaggeratedly and asked, No way, Poplar Fruit. You can even guess that? Poplar Fruit scratched his head embarrassedly and said with a smile, Hanjen is back. Considering the conditions you mentioned, a girl group that's from our country and is very famous, it should only be Qianyo, right? Teacher he, Wei Jia, and Fatty Haitao looked at each other and looked at Poplar Fruit. Fatty Haitao asked curiously, Poplar Fruit, do you also chase after a Korean celebrity? Poplar Fruit shook his head and said with a smile, No, it's just that my girlfriend likes to watch Korean variety shows, so I know a little about it. Sister Na stood up and put her hand on Teacher he's shoulder. She smiled and said, Poplar Fruit, I heard from Teacher he that you've been keeping a low profile after you became famous and are more approachable. Now, it seems like you really don't have the airs of a celebrity. Teacher he added, I heard it from Professor Luo. Actually, this is the second time I've met Poplar Fruit. I pretended to be familiar with him just now, but my heart was in a mess. I was thinking about what to do if Poplar Fruit ignored me coldly. Teacher he liked to act. His every move and his eyes were playful, giving people a feeling of uneasiness. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Teacher he, you worry too much. Actually, I'm the one who should be worried. I'm worried that I won't know what to say on the show. I didn't expect you guys to be so chatty. You must bring me along. Poplar Fruit bowed slightly. Of course, of course. That's a must. Actually, Sister Na, you're thinking too highly of me. Poplar Fruit smiled embarrassedly. I'm not as high and mighty as you say. When I went to Bali, I was just fulfilling my promise to my friend and helping him put on these clothes. I didn't expect it to attract so much attention. What do you mean just putting on the clothes? Fat Haitao laughed exaggeratedly. His eyes disappeared. Poplar Fruit, you've become an international superstar. I haven't seen a Chinese become so popular abroad for many years. Brother Tao, there's no such thing as an international superstar. You're overpraising me. Poplar Fruit quickly waved his hand and said, Actually, after returning from Bali, I didn't plan to continue in the modeling industry. Why? Is it because of Givenchy? Wei Gao frowned and asked. He was really concerned. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, No, it's because of my own reasons. It's not that modeling is bad. It's just that I prefer my old life and academic research. I can attest to that. Teacher he smiled. Our professors outside of Beijing all said that Poplar Fruit is very good. If he didn't choose Higashiyama University, we would definitely want him. Professor Luo also said that Poplar Fruit is very knowledgeable and will definitely be a professor in the future. He's more suitable for the title of teacher than me, the unreliable teacher he. Poplar Fruit felt that he was blushing from the praise. Wu Xian, who was squatting next to him and holding Kiki, raised her head. She felt that Poplar Fruit's elegant appearance was very handsome. It was a pity that Poplar Fruit not only had a girlfriend, but also a child. Teacher he and the others were just visiting to improve their understanding of each other and prepare for tomorrow's program recording. After greeting each other, they told Poplar Fruit a little about the things to pay attention to tomorrow, and then tactfully left. Originally, if it were any other star, Teacher He and the others might have invited him out to play. But Poplar Fruit was a man with a child, so it was a heavy responsibility. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 8:16. Early in the morning, Mr. He came to fetch Poplar Fruit and Kiki to the TV station. Poplar Fruit did not have an assistant or a company. He was all by himself, so Mr. He had no choice but to come over early in the morning. After all, he was the one who invited Poplar Fruit. Of course, Mr. He was also a very responsible person. Mango TV was a small H-shaped building. There were two buildings, one tall and one short, and the two buildings were connected by a walkway in the middle. However, the roof of the short building was a little protruding, and it looked a little like a chair. Along the way, many staff members greeted Mr. He, and Mr. He responded to each of them happily. He was very humble. This made Poplar Fruit, who was following behind, a little emotional. He was not emotional because of Mr. He's popularity, but because of Mr. He's attitude towards people. Taking popularity into account, Poplar Fruit felt that among all the hosts he knew, perhaps only the Korean national host, Loo Zaishi, was similar to Mr. He. Loo Zaishi was also one of the hosts that Poplar Fruit liked. On this point, Fong Beibei had a little disagreement with him. Fong Beibei preferred Jin Zhonghua, the muscular man with a mosquito's voice. Mr. He sent Poplar Fruit and Kiki to the waiting room and said, "Poplar Fruit, wait here for a while. In about half an hour, we will have a makeup artist come to put on your makeup." After the experience in Bali, Poplar Fruit was not too resistant to putting on makeup before going on stage. He knew that if he did not put on makeup, he would look very pale when the lights hit his face. It would be very strange. As for why Mr. He did not arrange a hairstylist for Poplar Fruit, it was because with Poplar Fruit's buzz cut, a hairstylist could not make bricks without straw. It was better not to do it. After Teacher He gave some instructions, he left. Before the show started, Teacher He also had a lot of things to do. Moreover, as the main host of the show, Teacher He was busier than the other four hosts combined. The waiting room was a small room less than 10 square meters. There was only a dressing table, two sofas, and a coffee table. Poplar Fruit pulled Kiki to sit on the sofa. Of course, Kiki couldn't sit still. In an unfamiliar environment, Kiki felt a little uncomfortable. However, with her father accompanying her, she slowly began to curiously look around and explore the waiting room. "Papa, what is this?" Kiki walked to the dressing table and stood on tiptoe to look at it curiously. She couldn't see the top. "It's just a table for people to put on makeup," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "What is makeup?" Kiki walked half a circle around the dressing table. Her curiosity made her heart itch. "It's to put some foundation and blush on people's faces, then apply lipstick, draw eyeliner, and so on to make people beautiful." Poplar Fruit shrugged and said with a smile, "Haven't you seen Dad put on makeup before?" The little girl had already raised her butt, stepped on the corner of the dressing table, and climbed onto the chair. She wanted to see what it looked like. "Makeup is very uncomfortable. Your face is very uncomfortable. And if you put on makeup often, you may become ugly." Poplar Fruit scared Kiki. He got up and went over to Kiki and let her stand on the chair. This time, it was clear at a glance. Kiki was not interested in the rouge powder. She was especially interested in the large oval mirror on the dressing table. The little guy cupped his face and happily looked at it. Knock, knock, knock. Someone suddenly knocked on the door of the waiting room. Kiki was shocked. She looked behind her shyly and put her hands behind her back. She did not dare to show off anymore. Poplar Fruit thought it was funny. He carried his daughter down, afraid that Kiki would fall when he turned to open the door. Poplar Fruit was stunned when he opened the door. The people standing outside were not the makeup artists he was waiting for, but a few people led by a girl. Poplar Fruit recognized them immediately. The tall girl in the lead was the second guest that Teacher He and the others mentioned yesterday, Song Qian. "Hello, I'm here to visit." Song Qian took the initiative to greet him. The girl with big eyes had a beautiful smile, and her mouth was so wide that it reached her cheeks. She was a girl from northern China, but her career had always been in South Korea. According to the rules of South Korea, Song Qian, as a senior who had already debuted, did not need to visit Poplar Fruit. Instead, it should be Poplar Fruit visiting her. However, weren't they in China now? This was Song Qian's first time participating in a variety show in China. In order to help FX enter China, Song Qian had to put down some of her pride and get to know the celebrities in China, although Poplar Fruit was not one of them. She had already visited the 5 hosts of the Fast Lane. Poplar Fruit was her last stop before getting her makeup done. Hello, hello. Poplar Fruit hurriedly welcomed her in. Miss Song Qian, hello. I've been admiring you for a long time. Sorry, I was stunned just now. Song Qian hesitated for a while but still walked in. She actually had a good first impression of Poplar Fruit. Compared to the pretty boys in South Korea, Poplar Fruit's tall and sunny handsomeness was more charming. However, Song Qian did not have the courage to enter a celebrity's waiting room without her manager and assistant. One had to know that for an idol like her, being involved in a scandal was no laughing matter. However, when she saw the timid Kiki behind Poplar Fruit, Song Qian was relieved. At the very least, he wasn't a playboy who brought his daughter everywhere he went. After a brief understanding, Song Qian was ready to leave. However, Poplar Fruit stopped her and said shyly, Miss Song Qian, can I trouble you to give me an autograph? My girlfriend is your fan. Song Qian covered her mouth and laughed. This made Poplar Fruit even more embarrassed. Before he came, he asked Fang Beibei. Fang Beibei told him, celebrity autographs, the more the better. Not to mention Song Qian. Fang Beibei was a diehard fan of Winnie and her husband. Yanghua heard the assistant behind Song Qian whispering to Song Qian about what she wanted. Song Qian replied in Korean that Poplar Fruit wanted an autograph. Then, the female assistant blushed and pulled Song Qian's hand. Can you help me get an autograph from Leon Appa? I'm his fan. Under Song Qian's strange gaze, Poplar Fruit's face turned red. He clenched his fist and coughed, then said in Korean, Nuna, do you know me? He called her Nuna because Song Qian also called her Uni. Poplar Fruit was 2 years younger than Song Qian. She actually called him Appa. Poplar Fruit was a little confused. With a bang, the assistant dropped her bag. She opened her mouth and asked in a trembling voice, You can speak Korean? Even Song Qian's jaw almost dropped. She felt that Poplar Fruit's Korean was better than her, someone who had been in Korea for so many years. Yes. Poplar Fruit smiled bitterly and scratched his head. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 8:17. The story in the waiting room was just a small accident. After the assistant got the signature, Song Qian and the others left. Not long after, the recording of the quick book finally began. Standing backstage, Poplar Fruit stood behind holding Kiki and secretly looked at the laser lights shining irregularly on the stage. There, the music was loud and the rhythm was bright. More than a dozen men and women wearing black jackets were dancing. Some of them wore pirate hats, and some even covered one of their eyes with a black cloth. There was nothing special about the dance. The choreography was average, but the atmosphere was created well. The dark color lights, coupled with the realistic projection of several huge fans on the back screen, looked like a dangerous zone in a movie. The boss is about to appear. Sure enough, just as the dance of demons was about to end, 5 people silently walked out of the 2 sailboat-like barriers behind them. To be exact, it was 5 people wearing yellow clothes, yellow pants, or yellow skirt. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but want to laugh. Although the yellow color was contrasting under the dark color lights, it was still very funny. Even if Poplar Fruit already had an effect, he still laughed again. The 5 MCs dressed in yellow walked forward in unison as the music ended. They seemed to be walking in the steps of a model, but when they reached the front, they began to perform simple dance steps in unison. Finally, each of them ended with a pose. Yanghua sighed in her heart. She felt that Wu Xian's lucky cat hand acting cute was a failure. But it's all like this. It's a variety show. Even if it's done well, it's not necessarily outstanding. As usual, Mr. He started with his opening remarks, and then began to chat. I really feel that the happy family has a positive energy that is positive. The other 3 were still invisible. Sister Na responded. How do you say it? Let's give a simple example. Teacher, he said in all seriousness, Jia Jia and Haitao are doing bodybuilding. He and Sister Na looked at Fatty Haitao. I don't want to talk about weight loss because if I do, it would be a bit of denial of their past. Everyone laughed, and Fatty Haitao laughed awkwardly with his mouth wide open. I'm talking about bodybuilding. Teacher, he emphasized. Then they insist on eating a healthy diet and exercising every day. Just when everyone thought he was going to make fun of Fat Haitao, Mr. He suddenly turned to face Wagar. He pointed at his stomach and said, Look at how thin Wagar is now. Sister Na and the others jeered. Peck's abs. Vega was grinning from ear to ear. He said modestly, No. Then the tables turned. Teacher, he ignored Vega. He turned around and pointed at Fat Haitao, who was beside Sister Na, and said, The main point is Haitao. What we saw today was Haitao's transformation. It was as if he had given birth to a child. Everyone ran over to touch Fat Haitao's stomach and lied through their teeth. It's true, your stomach is gone. Everyone look. In reality, Fatty Haitao was still Fatty Haitao. He was so embarrassed that he bent over and laughed. At this moment, Fatty Haitao picked up the microphone and said somewhat excitedly, You know, just now there was a bro who shouted my name and followed it up with a sentence in Changzhou. I especially liked it. He strode forward, raised the microphone to the audience and shouted out, Bro. Haitao, you've lost so much weight. Fatty Haitao replied proudly, Of course not. Everyone laughed. Of course, it was a perfunctory laugh. Don't worry, I'll introduce you to someone with a really good figure later. You'll work even harder to shape your body. Sister Na laughed as she pulled the embarrassing Fatty Haitao back. At this moment, Poplar Fruit and Kiki were guided by the staff to the stage where they were going to go on stage. That's right, it was Poplar Fruit and Kiki. Under the request of many netizens, the program team had just communicated with Poplar Fruit. Mr. He had also persuaded Poplar Fruit to bring Kiki on stage. After a while, Wagar said, If there are friends around, if they supervise together, I think that kind of positive energy can be gained even more. Mr. He continued, You know, in fact, there must be many small things in life that we are not satisfied with. But what if you want your life to be more beautiful and better? You have to work hard yourself. Sister Na immediately poured cold water on him. But I'm not dissatisfied. The atmosphere created by Mr. He immediately disappeared. At this time, Wagar mischievously stood up and sang with a smile. Because in my heart, you are the most beautiful. Sister Na was indeed the most open-minded hostess who cared the least about her image. She echoed Vega's singing, waving her hands and swaying her, but as she did a strange dance. The others stood at the side with cold sweat and laughed. What kind of dance is this? Wu Xian, who rarely spoke, immediately stabbed a knife. Amidst the laughter, Teacher, he explained in an impassioned tone. Ever since Nana started wearing trousers and leather shoes, she has developed the potential of her limbs. She was originally about this position. Mr. He swayed his hips, imitated the slender long legs, and then made an even more exaggerated strange dance step. Now she has reached this position. You see. Sister Na also burst into laughter and jumped up with him. She shook her hair and looked like a crazy woman making a ruckus. But this was her special point. She was open and received a lot of applause from the audience. After a while, Mr. He returned to the topic. Today, we are talking about the most beautiful. We have invited 2 guests for today's program. One is the most beautiful girl in everyone's mind. When he said this, he immediately made a listening gesture. Song Qian. Many audience members shouted loudly. The news that Song Qian was going to participate in the Express edition had already spread on the internet, and many audience members present followed this name. Nevertheless, Song Qian's huge popularity was still surprising. Of course, Poplar Fruit, who had no love for being a star and had no concept of popularity, was listening in the back. He was not nervous at all. On the contrary, he was as relaxed as if he was coming to a dinner or a party. To be honest, after experiencing the big scene of the Bali Fashion Week, the Express edition, recorded in the studio, could not give Poplar Fruit any pressure. He kept comforting Kiki, letting her follow him. It's okay, just take it as going out to play. With her father around, Kiki was of course very calm. Then Poplar Fruit heard Mr. He say, "There is another one who is the most beautiful boy in our hearts." Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *, that you're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.